Please take your seats. We should be late for 2 minutes. The air transport has to follow the on-time performance. I count on you, and we need the passengers to be on board. Thank you.
You know she's speaking from that mic over there, yeah? They won't stand up when she comes in. Sorry? I think it's Barcelona, Sevilla. It is Barcelona, Sevilla. Well, it's which one? It's the enjoy thing. The enjoy. Yeah, yeah. And then Barcelona, like the hotel. Yeah, and then Sevilla, like in Spanish, Sevilla. Barcelona, Sevilla. No, no capitals. No. Barcelo, and then Sevilla, Sevilla.
Beyond words, the power of communication in aviation. Air transport has regained its momentum and continues to grow after the extremely challenging COVID period. Yet it remains under pressure from new restrictions and growing criticism, driven by powerful environmental lobbies and amplified by government decisions. These measures range from limiting traffic at certain airports to banning specific routes deemed unnecessary because they are already served by ground transportation. Decisions with very real consequences for our industry, and yet, air transport remains essential. It connects people, cultures, and economies. It brings the world closer together and opens doors for future generations. But today, our sector faces a major challenge: communication. There is still no strong, unified message to explain the vital role of aviation and the efforts being made to reduce its environmental impact. To face these challenges and prepare for the future, all stakeholders in air transport must come together. Over the next 10 years, hundreds of billions of dollars will be at stake. An unprecedented challenge, but also a historic opportunity to rethink our communication and build a sustainable future. This is the very essence of the 16th edition of World Connect by APG, hosted from October 29th to 31st, 2025, by the beautiful city of Seville. 500 participants representing nearly 100 airlines and their partners from more than 80 countries will come together to reflect, exchange ideas, and shape the future of air transport.
Sorry to disappoint you, I'm not Elvis Presley anymore. My dear friends, dear colleagues in the air transport, I'm so pleased to welcome you in this beautiful city of Seville. If our accounts are correct, 480 participants will share those 2 next days. You are coming from 92 countries. Some of you are coming from very far away. We have people from Australia, Japan, South Africa, Chile, Kazakhstan, and you can name them. So, nothing else to tell you. I declare the 16th World Connect by APG open, and I leave the stage to our Master of Ceremony, John Melchior.
We're back again. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the APG Connect. It's wonderful that I've been allowed again to be here and to run the show, as Jean-Louis likes to call it, to make sure that we finish on time. That's my main purpose of this. But more than that, we want to make it interesting. We want to make it engaging. He did ask me when he asked me to come here, was there anything that I wanted, during my period here that he could help me with? And I said, well, because I'll be on stage all day, there's not really an opportunity for me to do my steps. So he built a stage that was the longest that I've ever seen. And if I just keep walking, then we will have the steps in during the day. And of course, anyone who came by private jet, they could have landed it on this stage as well. But it's a lovely stage and a lovely background. I would like just one thing I should tell you of practical, and then I'll tell you a few more things afterwards. But we have this year a special feature on the app, which is the translation. So if you are tired of listening to somebody that tries to speak English, you can listen to me in Arabic, in Russian, in French, in Spanish, in German. I'm told especially my Arabic accent is very good, so if you want to do that, basically you take it up on your app, you can download it through the QR code as well, and you link it in, and it should happen automatically. This is the first time we're trying this. If the app says that I'm saying something I shouldn't say, don't believe it. I always say the right things. But please try it out. And if you speak different languages, it might be interesting to hear how it sounds in a different language. So try it out. Let's see how it works. Tell us how it works, and we will be delighted because this is the future. Next year, I won't be there. I'll just speak through the app, and this will happen automatically. It is my pleasure, first of all, to welcome you to Seville. And we're delighted that we are going to be addressed by the Deputy Mayor of Seville, who's also responsible for culture and tourism, which is, of course, the whole thing that Seville is also famous for. So it's my delight to welcome Angie Moreno to the conference with the whole team. Thank you for hosting us. Thank you for sponsoring a lot of our events. And thank you for arranging such beautiful weather yesterday. I know that comes under your remit as well. But I hope that you being here today means the weather will improve. So you will bring the sunshine as you have it 363 days a year, except for yesterday. So welcome to Angie Moreno. We will first see a video, and then we will hear from the Deputy Mayor.
Welcome to Seville, the city where history and future connect. Our city attracts millions of visitors annually, captivated by the grandeur of its heritage and its unique way of understanding life. But Sevilla is much more than its past. We are committed to sustainable growth, where the conservation of natural heritage is as important as our urban and economic development. Sevilla is strategically connected to the world. Our constantly expanding transportation network includes new subway line and high-speed connections that link us to national and international cities, an accessible, interconnected and dynamic Sevilla. But what truly makes Sevilla shine is its wide range of opportunities, from road infrastructure and real estate developments to tourism and technology. Our doors are open to collaboration in turning ideas into realities. Imagine a place where history and future come together to create a tomorrow full of possibilities. Imagine an ecosystem driven by innovation, attracting global investments and talent. Imagine Sevilla, the city where the future is being built today.
Jean-Louis Barrault, presidente de APG y APG Airline Plus, Sandrine de SAINT-SAUVEUR, presidente y CEO de APG Group. Señoras y señores, muy buenos días a todos. Good morning, everyone. Bienvenidos a Sevilla. Un auténtico honor en nombre del Ayuntamiento de Sevilla de darle la bienvenida a esta fantástica ciudad. Una ciudad reconocida en todo el mundo por su forma de vivir y por la calidez de su gente que hoy os recibe con los brazos abiertos. Hoy queremos que recibáis una muestra de nuestra hospitalidad, pero también una ocasión perfecta para agradecerles su presencia en un evento tan relevante para todos como es APG World Connect. Sevilla mira al futuro con ambición y con la convicción de que el desarrollo del transporte aéreo es clave para su progreso. En los últimos años, nuestro aeropuerto ha vivido una transformación notable, nuevas infraestructuras, mejores servicios y un compromiso firme con la sostenibilidad. No es extraño, por tanto, que el Consejo Internacional de Aeropuertos haya reconocido al aeropuerto de Sevilla como el mejor de Europa en su categoría. Las cifras hablan por sí solas. Hoy, Sevilla mantiene conexiones con 87 aeropuertos, 22 mercados y 29 aerolíneas. Un salto cualitativo y cuantitativo extraordinario si recordamos que hace apenas una década contábamos con algo más de 50 conexiones. Y este pasado mes de septiembre, el aeropuerto alcanzó su mejor registro histórico, superando los 820.000 pasajeros en un solo mes. Estos datos confirman una realidad incontestable. Sevilla es un destino en plena expansión, con una demanda sólida y un potencial enorme para seguir ampliando su conectividad internacional. Pero Sevilla es mucho más que su impresionante catálogo monumental. La ciudad ha crecido exponencialmente en el sector maíz, concretamente un 18% interanual, y se consolida como destino de turismo de lujo, ofreciendo una experiencia única y una oferta de alta calidad para el viajero más exigente. Pero más allá de las cifras, Sevilla aporta algo único, una identidad poderosa, una oferta turística sobresaliente y una posición estratégica que la convierte en puerta de entrada ideal al sur de España y al Algarve portugués. A ustedes, líderes de grandes aerolíneas, socios corporativos y colaboradores clave, quiero trasladarles un mensaje claro. Invertir en Sevilla es una decisión sólida y estratégica. Quienes ya operan aquí han comprobado cómo la demanda sigue creciendo y cómo las rutas se afianzan. A quienes aún no han dado ese paso, les aseguro que Sevilla está preparada para ser un destino rentable y competitivo para su desarrollo futuro. El potencial de la ciudad es inmenso y estamos listos para trabajar codo con ustedes, sumando su experiencia y visión a nuestro compromiso y determinación. Deseamos que este encuentro no sea solo una cita más en el calendario, sino el inicio o el impulso de una colaboración duradera. Permítanme terminar reiterando nuestro agradecimiento por elegir Sevilla como sede este año y reconociendo la labor de organizadores y colaboradores cuyo esfuerzo ha hecho posible este encuentro global. Disfruten de la ciudad, de su historia, de su cultura y de su hospitalidad. No me cabe duda de que Sevilla les conquistará, como ya lo ha hecho con millones de viajeros de todo el mundo. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Mayor. We're delighted that we received such a warm welcome from you. And I'm sure that people will have time when there's no business sessions to enjoy everything to do in Sevilla. I didn't understand everything because I didn't have my translation, but I'm sure you told us that this is the place of the tapas, the birthplace of the tapas, and it's where Christopher Columbus is buried, and there's 25,000 orange trees in town. And then at some stage, Madam Mayor, I wanted to ask you about explaining the secret logo of Sevilla, but I know it's a secret, so you can't explain it to us. But the no-do with the 8 that you see at the end there of the screen is the secret. You will see it many times hidden around Sevilla, and you can all guess what it means, and we will maybe have a competition at the end to see if we got it right. But it's something that Sevilla has built up over many years, and you see it on drains, you see it on the pavement, everywhere. So this is the secret logo of Sevilla, and it will remain a secret forever. Let me just tell you one thing. There is a camera crew outside, and they will maybe pulling some of you speakers or delegates aside. The one who will pull you aside will be young Frederick, who's standing up there waving to you in the dark at the back. But young Frederick, don't be afraid. This is all between us. It's all between friends. There is no fake news here. So you can say what you want, but it's mainly for promotional purposes, and it won't be broadcast to the whole world. So please cooperate with Frederick and speak to the camera when he asks you to do so. We will now have another sort of official welcome, which I'm looking forward to, as I'm always doing every year. I've introduced these two people quite a few times, and I've introduced them as many sort of double acts in the past. I won't go through all this again, but I thought this year maybe we should look at some serious introductions, because this is a serious conference. So I thought about the different business double acts, famous business double acts. So we all know some of them, tech and startups, you know, Bill Gates and Paul Allen from Microsoft, or Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak from Apple. In finance, we know Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, who was Berkshire Hathaway Investments. We know entertainment, the two Disney brothers. Many people know Walt Disney, but he had a famous brother called Roy Disney in entertainment. And in modern tech, we have people like Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia, who did Airbnb, or Travis Kalanick and Garrett Camp, who did Uber. In travel, we have two famous double acts. We have the Wright brothers, which you may have heard about. And many years later, the most famous at all, the one that we all know, the ones that are driving the business of aviation through the world. The famous double act that we will welcome to the stage, the two presidents, Richard Burgess and Sandrine de SAINT-SAUVEUR.
Thank you, John. Really, on behalf of both of us and everyone at APG, we are absolutely delighted to welcome you here in this beautiful Seville. And it's the first time in Seville, I hope not the last time, and it's for really our 16th World Connect. It's really impressive how history can talk. The themes we've chosen this year beyond the world, the power of communication in aviation, is not just a play on words. It's really a reminder that our industry, in this industry, effective communication is really an integral part of it for marketing, for operation, for lobbying, and for global management in general. Communication keeps aircraft flying. Okay, yesterday was tough, but it keeps aircraft flying. Businesses running smoothly, and airlines connected in many languages with their passenger across the world. And again, the level of participation this year, with people coming from all over the world, having sometimes flown during more than one day, and our fantastic support from our sponsors really underlines the need of face-to-face meeting and communication in person. So thank you for being here with us.
So over the next 2 days, we're delighted to welcome many prestigious speakers, many of whom have been here before, to share their thoughts, ideas, and experiences on a number of different topics. We'll hear from leaders who are shaping the future of aviation management, innovators pushing the boundaries of technology, and practitioners who remind us that at the heart of it all, communication is still a very human art. As a company, APG, we're proud to host this event. It embodies what we believe the future of aviation should look like: collaborative, forward-looking, and most importantly, human. APG is about connecting people and places, and communication is indeed more than words. It's what connects us to each other across time zones, languages, and cultures in over 100 countries around the world. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Richard and Sandrine. And they are available for conversations, they're available to do business, they're available to give you advice, they're available to buy you drinks, they are available during the whole conference. Whatever you need, they are there, as always. Let me give you just a few practical pieces of information. This is, as was said here, it is an amazing program that has been put together for this conference. The quality of the speakers are astonishing. The level of people that we've able to attract to Seville is just incredible. And I hope that you will enjoy it. I hope you will listen. We have a very good mix. When I looked through the speakers that we had quite a few people that either are in politics or have been in politics and decided to go into aviation for some reason instead of politics. But we have specialists on so many different subjects that all relate to how our future will be created and built, that it is a true delight. Of course, the key subject that we are talking about here is communication. And it should be so easy. You know, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, which means we should listen slightly more than we should speak. That's at least what my wife keeps telling me. But communication should be easy. But it's gone wrong ever since Eve forgot to tell Adam that the apple was poisoned and that he shouldn't eat it, or forbidden. It wasn't poisoned, it was forbidden. And since then, we've had a lot of communication that's gone wrong. Imagine if we could all speak to each other, could listen to each other, could understand each other, and could follow. But there is a difference between hearing and listening. So many people listen, but they forget to hear what is actually being said. And that's what we will try here to do. We will try to communicate during this conference. And because of that, I also would love to have you participate. You have a possibility to ask questions either through the app that will come up to me here on stage, and your questions. And we also have some roving mics for those who don't like to use the technology but prefer to speak through a microphone. Then we will have roving mics at some of the sessions. So feel free to communicate, talk to us, ask questions, get most out of the conference in this way. let me tell you a few practical things. First of all, I want to thank the people that have helped to create this great event, which are the sponsors. And the sponsors are, first of all, the main sponsor of Seville, the city of Seville, the tourist board of Seville, and represented by your team here today, Madam Deputy Mayor. So we're delighted to thank Seville for their sponsorship. Let's give them a round of applause. And then we have a number of different sponsors, and we'll try and keep the applause to sections, yeah? Otherwise, we can be applauding all day and our hands will hurt. So let's, first of all, Air France is our official carrier of the event. We then have a number of gold partners. We have Blue Ribbon bags, are back for many years and great, and we will hear them this afternoon. We have Hit It. We have Own It. And we have TRAVELSOFT is coming up. TRAVELSOFT, and finally, as a gold sponsor, we have Milanimos. So let's give our gold sponsors a round of applause. And then we have our silver partners. And the silver partners are ARC, ARC, FLOA, ICTS, and UATP. Notice that we are pretty good in abbreviations in this industry. Nobody wants to call themselves the full name. So ARC, FLOA, ICTS, and UATP, applause for our silver sponsors. And then we have event partners. There are some of the people that are paying everything that you are going to eat and drink. So thank you to Alliot Global, to Airline Factory, to APST, to Santacom, to Connect, to Moreva, to Marco Polo, to Teta Technologies, UATP, and Explore Assure. And finally, a lot of APG members have contributed and helped us to contribute, which we're delighted that they will do that. So very quickly, that we will thank APG, Argentina, Australia, Canada, Central Asia, DS, France, Germany, Ghana, Greece, Ireland, Italy, Mali, Morocco, Netherlands, Panama, Scandinavia, Spain, Turkey, UK, and the USA. Big round of applause. Thank you, APG friends. It took me about 15 minutes to learn all those by heart. that we are going to have over the next day and a half. And I'm delighted that we have persuaded Victoria Moores to run some of these interviews. She is a professional in this business and professional journalist and professional in so many ways. She is the European and African Bureau Chief for Air Transport World, which is part of the Aviation Week network. She was the publisher. She actually started in aviation. She worked for British Midland, which I remember so very well, having been near Birmingham at the time and worked with British Midland. But she decided that it was much more interesting to write about it than to sit there and check people in and get planes to depart on time. So she joined about 20 years ago, RUIZ Business Information as an aviation journalist, and has then moved through the ranks and now got this title, where she actually is a very influential journalist and for the whole industry. She has done a number of other roles, so she knows the industry virtually inside out, but by speaking to so many influential people and interviewing them, she knows what to ask and she knows what to write, and it's a great opportunity for us to have her here questioning some of the very important people that we have for her to interview. Her first, shall we call her victim, her first honorary VIP victim is Thierry BRETON, and this is a man who a lot of you will know from previous, but he is a man that has done so many things in his life that it's incredible that he's not past 100 years old yet, and he hasn't. But you know, some of the things that I was fascinating to read about is that he was, an author, has written a number of bestsellers translated all around the world, including thrillers. But he really started as a businessman and he formed an SME in the States first, and then he designed, which many people will know, designed and led Futuroscope, which was the first science and technology theme park, a totally different direction. And then went into large IT companies where he worked for Thomson Multimedia, Bull, and then finally CEO of France Telecom. And once he got tired of this, he said, well, why don't I become a politician? And then he became Minister of Economic Affairs, Finance and Industry of France for a couple of years from 2005. And followed that, he said, let me now teach everybody what I know. So he went to Harvard and taught at Harvard. And you would have thought that was retirement time for him. No, that's not true. So he then became Chief Executive Officer of Atos, which is a digital technology and service company. And he then went back and became the European Commissioner for the Internal Market from 2019, responsible for industry services, digital defense, and space. I don't think we could get a man that has tried more in his life than him. And I'm so looking forward to hearing what he has to say when Victoria asks him the questions. But remember, you can also ask questions from the audience, send them on the app up to me on the app here, or put your hand up and we will get a mic to you as well. So let's welcome Victoria and Thierry to the stage.
So good morning, everybody, and welcome. I'd like to start by expressing my sincere gratitude to APG for inviting me and trusting me with moderating these sessions, including this first one with former Commissioner Breton. And I'd just like to reiterate what John said about the audience participation in the sessions, and that is that please do use the app to share with us what it is that you would like to hear from our speakers, because ultimately my job is to try and deliver the kind of content that you want to hear, and it really does help if you give us a bit of feedback with that. So please do participate in the session. John is going to be keeping a close eye on your questions, and he will be bringing them in. If you want to speak directly for yourself, it's great to hear from you, so please do put up your hands. Ask questions, share who it is that you're representing here today, and also your name if you do decide to come in person. So with that, we're going to press on ahead with the session. Welcome, Thierry, to this first kick-off session for the conference. One of the descriptions that I saw about you and your career that was so well described by John is that you're Europe's industrial architect. And your work really does touch onto so many areas that impacts aviation. So it's that freedom of movement as Commissioner for the Internal Market, it's technology, it's industrial strategy, it's all of those pivotal points that helps aviation to function. It creates that framework. And I'm really curious to hear from you and to get a bit of color on, coming back to the theme of communications, we've had that communication shift, it seems, from the Commission and the European institutions, moving from an extreme focus on sustainability, and we're going to hear more about sustainability tomorrow, shifting over through the Draghi report onto this focus on competitiveness. So it seems as though there's been a real shift, and I'm curious, first of all, to hear from you your thoughts on that shift, and also your thoughts on how good a job does aviation do of communicating, particularly to policymakers? Thank you.
Well, first, good morning, everyone. Extremely happy to be with you this morning, and I'm thrilled to be your first victim, Victoria. So, thank you to support me, because she will be pretty tough. Well, you know, before answering directly to your questions, I would like to tell you that beyond everything, I'm an engineer, and I'm a scientist. Mm-hmm. And like many of you, probably all of you, but like many of our fellow citizens, aviation is about dreams, passion, technology, science, progress, everything I tried in my life to push forward. Mm-hmm. And that's fantastic. I mean, you know this better than me. For decades, when you were saying, look, I'm working in aviation, wow, that was a dream. And suddenly, when I was in the Commission, suddenly, I started to hear, don't say that you're working in aviation. Mm. Wow, what happened? And I was there. Mm. And I was really studied, because this was not, again, what we were used to it. Rightly so. And of course, we all know, and you will discuss this for the next 2 days, we know what happened, we know, of course, by the way, it was pushed by good reasons, of course. Sustainability is extremely important. Climate change is absolutely paramount. But it's true that they were all very vocal. And now we will speak about communication. Because they were very vocal to say, look, we need to take actions. And it's true. By the way, for us in Europe, we have decided, and we are a very, Madam President, democratic continent. We decided, our co-legislators decided, we voted for that by 2050, we will be a zero CO2 continent. And it means, of course, that we have to take actions. And we decided to put actions in motion. But like always, we need to be balanced. And it's true, I should say it, I really need to tell this to you, that the one pushing, and it was a discussion, of course, a political discussion about it, the one pushing forward for these actions were very vocal, and the others were mute. And I was in balance because, yes, I was the commissioner in charge of industry, including aircraft industry, including, of course, mobility and everything. So my first message here is that I should tell you that, as a, let's say, politicians in charge of global regulations, I missed your voice. And when I started to discuss with aircraft carriers, or when industry, when I started to discuss with airlines, when I started to discuss with airport, they all have different aspects. So in order to be more efficient, I decided to reorganize the internal market I was in charge of by ecosystems, because I wanted to have all the players involved to be able to speak with one voice. I was not in charge of transportation. I had a very large portfolio, but not transportation. And I should tell you that the way I reorganized or reshaped the internal market helped me to have these ecosystems more vocal. So my first request for you, if I must say so, is that in these days, I really think that, and this is why I was thrilled to be here today with you, we need to hear one voice for what you represent in this room, and not 3 or 4 voices. And that's extremely important, because the rest is very organized. And I should tell you, not exactly all of you. So I think it's extremely important to have one voice, because you represent these dreams, this passion, this progress, the way to connect people that we need together. Of course, we are in a world where the one with the bigger voice is sometimes the winner. I will not mention anybody, Madam President, but we have some ideas. So that's why my first message is be vocal. And I'm used to this. I mean, when I was a commissioner, I realized how important, when we are in charge of running, I mean, your delegation, your expertise or whatever, at the level of a continent, the voice is important. It's of course true for politicians, for president, but you need to behave as if you were representing this whole industry together. That's really my first message.
And I'm going to respond back to that first message from my experience of listening to the airlines speak. I used to work in lobbying as head of communications for an airline association. And what I've seen a lot of is the aviation industry really trying very, very hard to express the challenges that it's facing, the impact of regulation, the impact of needing to become more sustainable, and really recognizing that problem. And I think this almost goes back to John's point earlier. There's a difference between speaking and being heard, and what I've seen is quite a lot of frustration that airlines, aviation, the industry as a whole is saying fairly consistently similar things, but it feels as though there's a disconnect in the communication with the regulators to really reflect the realities of the industry.
No, I mean, that's obvious. I know when you're a regulator, when you're a politician in charge of regulations, of course, you need to work with your stakeholders at large. And of course, we have many stakeholders, and you represent some of them, but this is much larger even of everything which is represented in this room. And our mission, our job as regulators, is definitely to listen to all these stakeholders. You mentioned that I was a professor at Harvard for a few years, and I was teaching to my students the way that when you're a leader, wherever you are, being a CEO, being a politician, being a president, being a minister, or being a commissioner, or whatever, of course you need to have a vision, you need to drive what you believe is important is general interest that you represent for the time you're in charge. But you need, in order to do this, and that's true for CEOs, of course, you need to listen to your stakeholders, then take actions, have a vision, and put it in motion. And I was a CEO for many big companies, you mentioned it. I was also Minister of Finance, together with my friend Jean-François Copé. But then I thought how to answer to your questions, not only to be listened to, but then to put things in motion. And this is when I came to the conclusion that when you are in the middle of so many different stakeholders that you represent, and remember that you represent these stakeholders, how to finally end with a global vision and put everything in motion in the same directions. And I find only one way as a leader. It's not rocket science. When you discuss with all the stakeholders, you have your vision. The best way to have everyone to be aligned is to say, this is my objective, and then to run extremely fast, faster than all the stakeholders. They represent small vectors. They're not aligned, but then they will run after you, trying to catch you. So run faster than your stakeholders, and then they will be all aligned behind you. It's not rocket science, but it's working. So it means that wherever you are, as leaders, maybe do the same, but remember that you are also stakeholders. So better align yourself, and then you will be able maybe to change a little bit or to push a little bit the one in charge in the direction you want. If you don't do this, then you will have to follow.
So I hear what you're saying there about needing to move quickly, needing to gather together the stakeholders.
Speed is key. Be vocal is key too.
I see the aviation industry being vocal, and I see them pushing ahead on topics like sustainability and digitalization as quickly as they are able to. I mean, even in the supply chain, we're seeing that the manufacturers are trying to push the technologies so hard to try and reach this agenda that it's causing complications, because obviously some of the technological readiness, some of the reliability isn't there. I think that there's a second challenge, as well as it seems as though the industry is shouting with a unified voice. I do see there is a unification of message not being heard, but then at the same time, it almost seems like the regulation is moving quicker than necessarily the technological readiness or the know-how to implement those things. So I'm thinking about things like, obviously it wasn't your area, but Refuel EU, you've got this mandate to use a fuel that isn't being produced yet very soon in 2030. I'm thinking specifically about power-to-liquid fuels, eSAF. You are being required to use something that doesn't exist. And I think that there is a shared ambition among European regulators to move forward at pace with sustainability. There is a shared desire among airlines to move forward and the entire aviation industry to move forward at pace. But it seems as though there really is a communications disconnect between the policy and again, other things like Single European Sky. You know, if we've got this sustainability agenda, we need airspace to have direct routings. There's a disconnect between the policy and the readiness and the ability of the industry and the communication between the two. What do you think it is that's broken there? Do you agree that there's something broken there?
No, of course, but, you know, I mean, of course, you asked me to speak about Europe. And I know, of course, like many of you, that we see sometimes Europe as being very strong in regulation, but not strong enough in innovation. I heard this so many times in my life, which is true and not true. But I just want to remind you something. At the end of the day, speaking about Europe, we are a big democracy. Our continent is run with, this is a little bit like the US. Of course, we are not a federal state. But we have also 2 legislators. We have 2 chambers. Our House of Parliament our representative, is the European Parliament, representing our 450 million inhabitants. Our Senate in Europe is the European Council, exactly the same power as the US Senate. We have two chambers, one representing the states, territories, one representing the people, like in the US. And I spent 25 years of my life in the US. That's the same thing. Remember that. If you have a regulation, Victoria, it doesn't fall from the sky. It has been discussed, amended, voted by our regulators, than if you have some European in the room, and I know we have some, you elected. Remember, it's not the Commission with, or the little man with ties and grey suits working this stupid regulation. It is always something which has been heavily discussed in our chambers, amended and voted. So I'm sorry to say, be vocal. And you're absolutely right in what you said. We need to be careful. We have to run transition. We have to find the right pace, the right speed, taking into account everything which is available yet or not yet. Mm-hmm. But this is where, in the stage of evaluation, you know, when I first arrived in Brussels, I really had the feeling to be like in Washington, D.C. Same thing. Two chambers, 1,300 lobbyists, same numbers than in Washington, D.C., 1,400 journalists, same numbers that in D.C., because at the end of the day, I have nothing against lobbyists. We need lobbyists, because it's extremely important to deliver the right messages to the one that our population, Madam President, have elected. Be careful when you send someone in Brussels. Don't send someone because you're against Mr. Macron. Send someone because they will represent what you believe is good for Europe and for you. And sometimes in Europe, we don't understand that. When we vote, especially for European Parliament, it is more national votes than a global European one. And that's a mistake. So my message here is, this is when I started to say at the beginning of our discussions, Victoria. I know that you're very well organized, and of course this meeting is a proof of that. But I think it's really important to be vocal in Brussels, and believe me, the more vocal you'll be, the more you will get what you need. And of course, in my capacity, so I had in my portfolio digital, defense, space, many things. The good news that the good news, if I may say so, I was a scientist, I was an engineer, so I had already, and I came already with my background, with my own expertise. So I had already some feelings, what I believed was good for the general interest and for the industry. But sometimes you have commissioner or minister, Jean-François, without expertise where they had been sent to run. So this is when, and I really, I know it seems to be a little bit weird, but my plea is organize yourself and be vocal. And then, of course, we will be able to find the right way. Now, personally, I should tell you that I think we moved too far, and especially for everything which was sustainability, and it's extremely important that we moved a little bit too far. So it's important, and again, maybe to change it, to adapt it, and let me give you an example for the car industry. It's not aircraft industry, but the car industry. We have decided together, our democracy, not Brussels, our people and our states, voted in European Parliament and the Council that by 2035, we will not be allowed in the EU to buy non-electric cars. Personally, I was against. But this is a democracy. I was thinking it's too early. I was thinking it was more important not to focus only on electric cars, but also on other kind of technology, fuels or whatever, decarbonized. But this is a democracy, and I didn't succeed. And we voted to 2035. But I have been able, just before the vote, to say, look, let's have a review clause by 2026 to see where we are. And thanks God, we have a review clause. And 2026, we have decided to review where we stand and to see if we can adapt it. Mm-hmm. So that's extremely important. When you have some decisions, like the one you said, and if you believe it's going too far, push for a review clause. Because nobody knows, at the end of the day, we are speaking of huge transition. We have 3 major transitions to run together. Of course, the digital one, then the, let's say, green one, and also the more autonomous or sovereignty one. And we know what we are talking about. Look at, by the way, the discussions that I understand President Trump and President Xi had a few hours ago in South of Korea. Just to be able to see if we will be able to have enough permanent magnet for the next year. Because at the end of the day, this is what it is about. Balance of power. Rare earths, making what? 95% of the permanent magnet in China. And if you start a war, you need to understand what are the ammunitions of your counterpart. But you need, in your industry, permanent magnet like hell. Mark, I mean, in an airplane, I think we have probably thousands of electrical engines, sensors. They're all in permanent magnet. So if we don't have permanent magnet, which is probably what is at risk, no more aircraft. So, I mean, this is also sovereignty. So yes, we have to run these 3 major transitions together. And here, believe me, we need you to be vocal with only one voice.
Mm-hmm. I'm noticing from John that we've got some questions coming in from the audience, and I really do want to bring those in. I'm also aware that we've got just over 5 minutes of the session left. So, John, do you want to share a summary of what we're hearing from the audience?
So let me get a mic.
Yep.
Yeah. So I have a number of people who really would like to be politicians, I think, and given me some very long comments.
Be my guest.
So,
bonne chance.
So I'll give you a few tasters of what has come in. One person says, difference between speaking and being heard. Should we adapt our language, kind of balance between rational and scientific language that represents our education and values, and outrageous communication like green Khmers and other extreme lefties are doing to destroy our industry. Another one says, well, gather a few and then you can answer some of them. Another one says, when we talk about airlines publicly, for the past century, we've been talking about airlines, business class airplanes, billions, destinations, like children happily playing with their toys. As if we're only talking to ourselves. We must speak publicly like the blood in the arteries of the planet, not like it's cancer. We are fighting a major cancer, the end of movement in this planet. It would mean regression and a crisis of civilization. Ultimately, why is it so difficult to be proud of? And then there's a few questions as well. These were sort of more comments, I think. One question that I had from different people, if you see any of the leaders or the politicians being brave enough and being courageous enough to help us, or will it disturb their political agenda too much? So that's maybe a direct question. And the other one is relating to if communication it shouldn't just be the airlines, but it should be all stakeholders. So everybody involved in aviation, you know, including airports and manufacturers and distribution providers and technology and so on, that works with each other, and not just the airlines speaking with one voice. So first of all, the question is, are there any politicians brave enough, courageous enough? And secondly, can we get the whole industry? We only have about 4 minutes. I know it's a lot.
No, but of course you have you know, maybe I know we have some journalists, but could we speak just for the room?
Okay, so
this is off the record, the next answer.
Okay, off the record, I will tell you a story, just to demonstrate. When we started to have the COVID-19 crisis, of course I was in charge of industry, but I was not in charge of medicines. And you remember that suddenly we closed everything, shut down on our continent. But at the same time, we had to push forward our industry, pharmaceutical industry, to produce vaccines that we hoped will work to help us in this tragedy. And we at the Commission signed some contract, and then everybody thought, well, we signed the contract with big companies, pharma, and of course, you know all of them, Pfizer and everything. And then we thought it will come. But then, remembering my other task, I said, look, we need now to help the industry. We need to make sure that the supply chains will work. We need to go on the ground. We need to make sure that the companies, it was the first time ever, they will manufacture mRNA vaccines, for example. We need to make sure that we'll be able to improve. Then I said, look, I will handle it. And then I started to go, but airplanes were closed. No more commercial. Then I asked the Commission, look, I need to go there. I need to go every day in a factory to make sure that we can work together. And I just say this as an example, and take this like this, very humbly. Then I said, no aircraft. I said, well, maybe we could have a private airplane, because it's extremely important. We're speaking about people dying every day. Well, no, it's not appropriate, and especially if you take a private jet. First, it's costly, and secondly, you know, it generates CO2 emissions. It's not really related with our policy. Then I decided, okay, I will do it myself. And then I took between 50 to 70 flights, private flights, that I paid myself with my own money, asking also the NetJet or whoever of this world to make sure that I could erase the CO2 emissions. And thanks to this, and thanks to the ecosystem that you represent, every single day with my team, with private jet, we are the only one flying in Europe. We have been able to go to see what was missing, and finally, in less than 1 year, to become the first continent in terms of being able to manufacture vaccines to fight COVID for us and for the world. So my word is thank you for this industry. Thank you for what you allow us to do. Without you, it will have been another world. Thank you very much, Victoria.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wow, that was fascinating. I think we could use a few hours more with Ms. BRETON, but I think it was a wake-up call to the industry. You know, I don't think we should feel, as Victoria said, we shouldn't feel ashamed of what we've been doing. We have worked hard, but as an industry, it is so important that we speak up. and that we speak up with one voice and we speak jointly, because we all have our own interests. But at the end of the day, if the industry is not there, then we are not there. So we need to speak as an industry, and I'm delighted that, you know, through APG, speaking on behalf of so many, I think they also have an important role in helping so many airlines speak together as an industry. So thank you very much, Monsieur Breton and Victoria, and we'll hear from you more, Victoria, shortly. And you know, maybe some of the questions that were asked here will be interesting for the following speakers also to address. We will now have a chance to discuss this between us and to find out our strategy, because we will go to the coffee break, which will be just outside here. I ask you, please, the coffee break is 30 minutes. I ask you, please, to be disciplined as always and be back here on time. The break is sponsored by Moreva. They make excellent coffee, as well as other things. So feel free to go and speak to our sponsors around here outside and enjoy each other's company, but be back here. Latest, we will start in exactly 30 minutes, if you're here or not, but you will be here. All okay? If you can find a seat, you can use it. They all cost the same in this hall. There's no extras for sitting in the front. The food is the same, the drink is the same. Thank you for coming back on time, more or less. And we are ready for the next session. The next session is called Enhancing the Passenger Experience Through Smart Communication. We're so lucky that we have the supreme communicator himself to speak to us and being interviewed by Victoria, who I won't introduce again because you now know her so well, and you will get to know her even better. You also know Sir Tim Clark very well. He has been gracious enough to come to us a number of times at the APG conferences, and he does have the title of the King of the Aviation Industry. I don't know if he has it, but I gave it to him anyway, so that's my privilege to do that. But he, as we found out 2 years ago when he was here, or where we were then, that he's one of the few people that I so enjoy because he's been in the industry even longer than me. But he looks younger, and that's not fair. But Sir Tim has been in the industry since 1972. He joined a company that those of you above a certain age will remember as British Caledonian, which was a wonderful company. But for the last 50 years, he's been in the Middle East, starting with the Gulf Air, and then on to Emirates, joined them as head of airline planning from 1985. And I won't go through the whole history because there's a long history, but it's enough to say that since 2003, when he became president of Emirates Airline, he has driven this company to untold success. I mean, it is incredible what this airline has achieved, not just because it makes money, it carries a lot of passengers, but it's a trendsetter and somebody all other airlines strive to get to their standard. And I think I can say that even with so many other airlines in the room, I think I'm able to say that. He also ran for a period Sri Lanka Airways that was bought by Emirates in 1998. But he gets time also to do so many other things, and I especially want to highlight his involvement in charitable institutions, including the Emirates Airline Foundation, working for disadvantaged children. He has enormous amount of other honorary titles in terms of work from honorary degrees from all sorts of different universities, and as well as that, been given awards, including, of course, the knighthood and the Officier de Légion d'Honneur by the French government, but a number of other distinguished awards. His latest award was the Lifetime Achievement Award by Air Transport World, which of course Victoria represents here. But it would take too long for me to go through all of this. I just say that it's a delight to have you back, Sir Tim, on the stage. And we know one thing for sure, there is no politician in him. He speaks as he thinks and as he believes, and he tells us as it is. And we look forward to listening to him. So welcome back, Victoria, and welcome, Sir Tim, to the stage. Welcome back.
So welcome, Sir Tim, and also welcome back to our audience. It's always good to see the room fill back up again after a coffee break. And I hope you had an opportunity to talk through perhaps some of the ideas, thoughts, suggestions for the industry that came up from that last session. We need to communicate with one voice. Aviation isn't communicating effectively to regulators. What are your thoughts on that? What's your response to this point that the aviation industry isn't expressing itself well enough?
I think probably it was a bit disingenuous to say that we needed to speak with one voice and we needed to be heard. I think as far as things like sustainability is concerned and the realities of a sustainability program, particularly as it affects the aviation aerospace industry, has been clear and present in the minds of most of the thinking politicians, particularly in Europe, for many years. For some reason, the repetition of the message, particularly with the achievability, the pragmatic approach to reaching the sustainability levels defined perhaps in the EU's set of rules, which requires by 2050 all aircraft to have 75% of all aviation will be on e-fuels or whatever. The message that is probably that is not achievable simply because the multiple stakeholders involved in getting there are nowhere near organised to the extent that they need to be even at this stage. After all, we started talking about this when Al Gore woke up in 2006 and the inconvenient truth that he published, and it spawned what has become a 20-year, almost an industry. And the airline community has been the forefront. I could never understand why the IMO, the maritime side of things, managed to carve out itself for many, many years until fairly recently. But the airline industry, because it has glamour, it has panache, it carries 4 billion plus people a year, it therefore, in the eyes of the, I was going to say the tiger, but anyway, it's very much there, and it was incumbent upon us to try and articulate the message, particularly with the realities of the situation, and at the same time saying this is probably one of the most technologically advanced industries in the world. It's had to be because of the need to scale the business, to scale the economics of the business, employing technology, which is fairly self-serving in some respects. We obviously needed to improve the quality of our bottom line because fuel prices were going through the roof, so the airframe manufacturers and the propulsion people eventually came to the table and started producing engines that were hugely fuel efficient. I won't go into the comparisons between a 707 in the 60s and 70s as against what's going on with a 350 or a 787 today. But the message seems to be lost. Or on the other hand, they don't want to hear it. Why don't they want to hear this very good story? Why do they not accept the practicalities of what has been imposed on an industry, which a previous speaker said was absolutely critical? The arteries of the planet are fueled by, obviously, the maritime side and by air. And it's a growing business. And the conscience of the business, and people like me are very concerned about our environmental footprint. But at the same time, I've got a business to run, and it's a very successful business, and it continues to be that way. But at the same time, how do we deal with all the bits and pieces coming at us? And all I would say to the regulators, to the politicians, if you can plant politics for one point in time, plant your political alliance
and see how is it achievable and how do we actually get it. We all want to get there. We all want to be part of mankind that tries to sort out what is going on the planet today. And there is clear evidence of huge waste, capriciousness, too much. We're driven by consumer spending, we're driven by consumer choice, we're driven by things coming at us that we can't resist. I mean, iPhone 17 has just come out. I mean, what was wrong with iPhone 15, 16, 12? But everybody dumps them, they have to have them. So we've got this thing that we have to deal with. And I guess in some respects people say, well, you guys are in the same picture. In other words, people want to travel on airlines, low cost or whatever, because they can and because they want to do all the things that you're offering them. So we're all in this together. But somehow we have to manage it better than we're doing. And as I look at the way the Chinese view this, latterly the Americans, the Europeans, the Brazilians, the Saudis, the Australians, there is a complete mismatch in how we go about all of this. And driven by localized politics, driven by bloc politics, say the EU, and the politicization of the whole issue. We've talked about magnets, we've talked about rare earths, etc., and how this is having to be dealt with. But the fact of the matter is that through all of this, we're all getting affected. So if one block of countries decides to make some punitive legislation which makes it very difficult for their own carriers to compete, we've heard this from the European carriers saying you're imposing on us something which others do not get who compete with us in our own market. Isn't that a bit unfair? So rather than try and deal with the actual problem itself, they then say, yes, we must tax everybody that's coming into the European Union or whatever. This makes no sense to me. It needs to be far more outward-looking, far more consensual in the way it goes about setting this legislation, having a view to what others are doing and how they can splice that in without being intimidatory or threatening. We saw what happened in the last ETS. The Chinese said this is going to happen. The Brazilians said the same thing, and the EU abandoned it. And now it's reared its head again. But even as the previous speaker said, they have a reset. They suddenly realise perhaps they're going too far with this, and we need to think, this isn't doing our economies any good. After all, the cost of power in Europe and the UK has rocketed as a result of green policy impositions, which you may or may not agree with. But one thing's for sure, everybody's paying a lot more for fuel, for power, than they've ever had to do before. So, I see dysfunctionality across the planet. And to go back to what I just said, when the new president of the United States appeared, he turned the whole thing on its head. Yeah. Drill, baby, drill. So you have a polarization of thought, and therefore a polarization of action, which therefore affects the way people like the industry is trying to deal with this. Our industry particularly. And you also see in the United States the complete abandonment of some of these mission statements that companies had with regard to the green agenda, sustainability, whatever it may be, the diversity, equity, inclusion agenda has been thrown on its head. And actually, in the US, you could find yourself in a few problems if you banged on about those as much as you did in the previous years. So how fickle are we, really, in all of this? But companies like Emirates, which are trying to navigate its way through the politics of regions, the politics of countries, the socioeconomic, the societal pressures on us, have got to somehow outsmart all of that and keep our business growing. It's not without its difficulties. But in the end, they throw a lot of Brexiters, but they say, hey, we love getting on Emirates. They always go great first class, business class. Thank you, Commissioner, as you travel from Brussels to wherever it is, we'll look after you, don't worry. Well, we don't mean you, we mean all the others. So I guess the pragmatism of, and the realities of dealing with this situation today that we find ourselves in, which I'm afraid has shifted considerably from what it was 2 or 3 years ago. So where are we going with all of this? Well, I do hope that we don't lose the impetus to recognize what mankind is doing to the planet. As I speak as an individual, not a head of a large airline, but one, sorting out what we need to do and try and get a sort of global buy-in to all of this without making it overly punitive. After all, the Industrial Revolution was 250, 300 years ago, and we're trying to transition in another revolution in 1/10 of the time, and that's going to be difficult to do. But in the end, don't lose faith. You know, people, because we get caught up in the political crossfire and all this, it kind of suppresses your enthusiasm for trying to get the job done. But we shouldn't do that. What the politicians do is one thing. What we need to do is try and make sure we're doing the right thing. Whatever we do and whatever effect we have on the environment and that footprint, can we make it better without being told by somebody that you're going to be given a bad time, you're going to be fined or whatever? Just do the right thing. Mm-hmm. And if you can demonstrate that you have done the right thing as best you can in in all conscience, then, you know, it's the best you can do, really.
Yeah, and the airlines find themselves trying very hard to run a business as effectively and as efficiently as you possibly can, while rather than being supported by those frameworks that we have, actually having to almost battle against them. And I know that in that last session we had the question of, is there going to be a politician who is brave enough to stand up and have a different opinion? I'm going to be controversial here. In a way, that's what President Trump has done, where he's saying we're going to put kind of America first to the front. And it just seems as though the pendulum swings from one side to the other, and what the focus is having an effective business. Now, we've already talked about kind of the airline's voice to the regulators in terms of you know, is what needs to be said being said? Is it being heard? We've also got this separate conversation going on in the industry, because it's an ecosystem, of the conversations from airlines to suppliers. And I know that that's something that has been quite challenging in terms of how do you run a business? How do you run your fleet when you are waiting for 7 years for one aircraft type? I'm referring to the 777X. What are your conversations looking like with the supply chain now, and are you being heard?
Well, I think we're being heard, because we've been, if one thing we've been very vocal about is the supply chain really needs to get its act together. After all, it's now 5.5 years since COVID kicked in, and to bang on about COVID and the paradigm shift in the way manufacturing goes about in the Western world, OECD countries, etc., is getting a bit tired now. Demand is clear, certainly in the aerospace industry. The demand for aircraft, the demand for our products, the demand for our air transport demand in general has surpassed all expectations compared to, I remember sitting here, well, it was in Monaco, I think in 21, saying to the same group, don't worry, it'll come back at us. You need to just be patient, but there's a tsunami coming, there's a storm coming. You can't suppress the global population for 2 years and expect them to not decide that they're going to get off and fly. And it's exactly what happened. But the supply chain didn't react to that. And they rather went into a sort of huddle of desperation, as I call it, having gone through major mergers and acquisitions up until COVID and post the 2008-2009 financial crash. When the going got really tough, and they needed to accelerate their manufacturing base back to where it was, there was reluctance to do that, in the belief that COVID was such a paradigm shift in the global economy that things would never get back to where they were, even though people like us, and I was very vocal about that, if you believe that, you're in the wrong business, get out, because actually it's going to come back really, really stronger, and we've got to be ready for it, but they clearly weren't. And today, I see an element of mediocrity in the businesses that are supporting the airline aerospace community. They either need to look at the business operating models that they have. If they have to divest, what they have to do to concentrate on the core issues, the core products that they need for our business, maybe that should be done. But what I'm seeing now is a consolidated industry which does not perform as it used to do prior to consolidation. And that in itself is a message. So we've been trying to deal with this, and in the end I've abandoned a lot of it and said, we're going to have to do this ourselves. So in the end I've said, look, if Emirates is going to keep going, keep these 380s flying and the 777s flying, you mentioned the delays to the X program, which is now going into its 7th year, and we should have had 100 of those aircraft by now in our original contract. We fortunately took that decision in 21, realizing that it was looking a bit flaky. Because of all the things I've just said, we better start refurbishing all our own aircraft, which is what we did. Thank God we did that. But going forward, I still see holes in the supply chain, which I'm not sure are ever going to be filled.
Never going to be filled.
Well, I have my doubts, because when I talk to the management of these supply chains, they are biting their fingernails and clearly unable to grasp the nettle with regard to what needs to be done. And say, if you can't do it, we're going to have to do it ourselves. So we're looking at now setting up a tertiary manufacturing sector in Dubai to deal with the aerospace requirements that we see in the future. Already our engineering facilities has stepped right outside traditional aircraft engineering to start producing things that we need for seats, for galleys, for televisions or whatever. But I see more of that coming simply because we cannot have the tail wagging the dog. We've got a job to do. And we have very clear plans for the next 16 years, actually, with fleet growing and products changing and everything else. We can't have that affected by people the third parties who can't do the job to keep us there. So we're going to have to do a lot of it ourselves.
And I think that kind of what we've seen historically from airlines, particularly in the birth of the low-cost carriers, and I know that you are categorically not a low-cost carrier, but we saw that there was a great deal of outsourcing, there was a great deal of trusting in partners that they would be able to deliver. And we've now seen a shift towards internalization of bringing those core operational functions in-house, because you need to have control over whatever you can for the core elements of your business. Now, you mentioned that you're going to do it yourselves. You mentioned this push towards manufacturing. What will that look like? What will it be that you will be doing with that plan? How long will that plan go on for?
Well, I think we could probably get our first factory up by the middle of back end of 27, beginning of 28, if things go to plan. We will have some of the incumbents involved in that. They're quite keen to work with us.
What will that relationship be?
Well, still in definition stage. They still want to have control of whatever goes on. Look, for us, I never thought we'd be in this position. It's a bit like asking the head of Boeing or Safran or somebody to run our business. I wouldn't expect them to be able to do it. And frankly, how you get involved with tooling and gantries and all the stuff you need to do, the engineering skills, we have to work through all of that. But in the end, if we do not get what we want it in the place that we need it to be with them as they are, and they realize that. So they're very happy to come and work with us, because it's almost like a clean sheet. They can energize their manufacturing, their product design and execution in a manner that would be hamstrung a little bit in Europe. You have unbelievable labor laws here. You have all sorts of environmental rules, etc., etc. It's quite difficult to run a business in Europe without all sorts of EU requirements, blah, blah, blah. I won't go into that because it's highly controversial, but I do know that down there we have none of that. Mm-hmm. So we can get things from concept through to execution and implementation in probably a quarter of the time and at 1/10 of the price. It's as simple as that. Mm-hmm. With the quality that we would absolutely insist on, quality gate into plant, quality out onto the line, with a 24/7 manufacturing capability using skills that we have already in place in Dubai, but we can bring them in from overseas. So it gives us a fighting chance of actually dealing with that problem. I'm not saying it's going to be perfect, it's not going to be easy, but if I let things go as they are, we're going to be strung out for a long time in some of these things.
What will you be manufacturing? So clearly you've talked about kind of the process, how you'll go about that. What will you actually manufacture?
Look, we won't be building engines, mm-hmm. and we won't be building wings and fuselage. We'll leave that hopefully to our friends in Boeing and Airbus, and Rolls-Royce and Pratt and General Electric. But we will take a lot more capability in terms of the servicing of the engines and the overhaul of those engines. The engine manufacturers cannot step up even to the contracted terms that we have with them with regard to the overhaul of the engines as they come off wing under the scheduled maintenance. They're sitting around waiting for parts. We want to do better in that area. We want to do better in our seats, our galleys, all the customer touch points. You know, for the last year I've been working in my office with bits and pieces on the floor of my office, new cabins, new ideas, new designs, what the cabins of the future are going to look like. And I think, how are we going to do this with this lot? We've got to do better than that. So we can go from concept through to execution, implementation, using our STC capability, supplemental type certificate, which we're gradually getting better at. So eventually the engineering group will be able to take a lot of what we need to we'll do it ourselves in those areas. And, you know, like Emirates has always been at the vanguard of product innovation, product development, etc. We've slowed down simply because of what I've just said. And that's not the ethos of the company. It has to move at pace and continue to do things that I cannot rely on the supply chain to do it at the pace that we want. So we'll do it ourselves.
The challenge is you can't manufacture aircraft or right now where you're at, you don't want to.
I wish we could.
I'm just going to check in with John and also with the audience at this point, just to see if we have any questions coming in. We've got a shake of the head from John. Anybody in the room want to put up your hand to ask a question? We have one just in the second row here. Do we have a roving microphone?
Coming.
When the microphone arrives, if I could just ask you to mention your name, which company you're representing, and then share the question as briefly as possible so that we can maximize the answer time. Thank you. It's this lady just here.
Yeah. Thank you very much. My name is Özlem Salioğlu. I'm a former Turkish Airlines International Relations Senior Vice President and just left 3 months ago. My question is more regarding how do you foresee the challenges coming with the low-cost carriers and the legacy carriers in the forthcoming period in terms of the business models? Because the legacy carriers are focused on the high revenue and the low-cost carriers are having this point-to-point transfer, but in a way, sometimes that point-to-point transfer is also affecting the legacy carriers because it's not always the high-level revenue that you can obtain. So my question is the challenges that you foresee in the forthcoming period in terms of the business models, how they are evolving, low-cost and the legacy carriers. Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
In 1998, I gave a speech at the Institute of Economic Affairs in London when exactly that question came up. When the low-cost community morphed and came across from Southwest Airlines in the deregulated environment of the United States in that period, when it came to Europe, what would be the position? Would the legacy carriers go bust? Would they try and absorb? Would they fight them with very low fares, etc.? Blah, blah, blah. My question was then, the answer to that was that the pie in 1998 would quadruple by 2030, 2040, and that there was sufficient demand for everybody in whatever operating model you chose to go into. And the fact remains is that when the likes of Ryanair, EasyJet, etc., there were some failures because some of those people didn't know what they were doing. But if you see the explosion of growth in the low cost, then that finally morphed into Asia and now into the Middle East as well. Have you seen material damage to the carriers that were under threat, Air France, Lufthansa, British Airways, etc.? What they've done, they've adapted their business models to the reality of the fact that they're not going to be able to carry everybody, certainly not at the prices that Ryanair is traveling. So you will allow that segment to grow at pace, and it surely did. Prior to the 2008, 2009 financial crisis, it was exploding. And that pie was growing at such a pace. And so was the long-haul, full-service airline demand as well. The way I see it going forward, I see more of that. In fact, so much more coming what I've learned from COVID is that mankind does certain things when they're suppressed, whatever it may be. And one of the things they do is that they want to get out, they want to enjoy whatever they can while they can. Now that may be fairly trite, but the fact of the matter is that the low-cost segment is probably one of the best things that's happened to the aviation community in the last 30, 40 years. It's done a great service to the traveling public because it's made travel very affordable. It has opened up multiple industries, not the least of which are hospitality, travel, but all the other things around it. And the mainline, the legacy carriers have thrived as a result of that. Do I see that changing? No, I don't. I see there are, sometimes they get a little bit confused. They want to move into they want a hybrid model. But the ones that really succeed are the ones that keep absolutely pure and constant to their original business model. And Ryanair is a classic example of that. To an extent, EasyJet is as well. Do not budge from that very successful model, which is high volume, low margin, but here the bottom line takes care of itself. Because you do not deviate into frequent flyer programs and chauffeur driving lounges and lovely food on board and everything. Don't do that. And it's not exactly the best way to travel, I have to admit. But if it's affordable, then why not? But I look forward and I see what's going on in Asia. I see, there are pressures which will come at the aviation community, but demand is a constant and it continues to grow at pace. And that's the way I look at it. I'm always an optimist like that, and I kind of say to my peer group competitors, you should not worry about killing each other. You should be worrying about how you're going to reach the public that you really want to get. And you know something? They want to come to you. They don't want strikes in your base stations. They don't want industrial action. They want a great product. They want an affordable fare. But hey-ho, clearly, post-COVID, people are prepared to pay quite a lot more and travel a lot more than they ever did. That is the paradox of post-COVID. People are traveling more at much higher prices, both in the low-cost area as well as in the full-service segment. So when I look forward, unless there's some major geopolitical meltdown, more to come. And watch the space, because that pie's going to get bigger.
I'm going to see if we can squeeze in 2 more questions in our last 3 minutes, which is very ambitious, unless John's got anything coming in from the audience. The first quick-fire question is, aviation communications, obviously there's a lot of use of AI and technology in the customer relationship now. It doesn't always necessarily deliver. Quick fire, what are your views on AI and the impact that could have on the industry?
Look, in Emirates, we've had machine learning scientists on this for, I think, 10 years now. As computing power, and you've seen all the business about chips, et cetera, has become far more potent than ever it was. You're able to do a lot more with what is called AI. After all, machines have been outperforming chess grandmasters for years. And some of the greatest minds on the planet are outperformed by machines today. So, the way I look at it is that this is a fact of life. We will grapple with it. There are so many wonderful things that we get out of artificial intelligence. If it's used sensibly, it's used for the benefit of all. You see Sam Altman, before he seemed to have taken the king's shilling the other day, was very convinced that it should be used for the benefit of mankind, a bit like Tim Berners-Lee did when he came up with the internet. And if it's used intelligently, smartly, it really is something that will be so awesome for mankind in every walk of life that we would be foolish to retard that development. Our problem is that it is in the hands of a few, whether it be Meta, whether it be Alphabet, whether it be Google, Microsoft, or whatever. And you see this consolidation of what is something, probably the biggest single thing that is going to affect mankind in the next 100 years, is how we go about deploying this vastly improved computing power to the benefit of all, rather than being channeled by some of the big players. And after all, where is it taking them? Ask them that. And they won't give you an answer. All I know is that I need to have vast numbers of data centers with vast amounts of power and water to make them work on a path that we think we can monetize, and then come to people like us and we've got a great solution for this, and 6 months later it's out of date because they've moved on again. So the biggest single problem is how to do all this. I mean, when I think of the benefits, societal benefits, research in medicine, robotics in medicine, but in all walks of life, if we do the right thing, and the wealth created by the application of artificial intelligence-driven, whatever it may be, that wealth is shared throughout the planet. It is not in the hands of a few. So when I talk about a 3-day week coming up in the next 10 or 15 years, it is because wealth has been passed to the people who are working a 5-day week, and they will get on Emirates and fly on holiday everywhere, you see. That's the way it is.
So it feeds back to you.
But it's conceivable that technology will allow us. But if you're going to say to people, well, you're all going to lose your jobs and you're going to be unemployed and you're going to have to live on state benefits, that's not going to work. That's not spreading the message that AI can bring to all of us. But if you've just got to be a little bit careful when you see NVIDIA going up to a $5 trillion company today. That's the economy of Germany. That's 30,000 people in NVIDIA. And it's a $5 trillion market cap, and the other 3 or 4 trillion. You know, this is, well, where are we going with all of this? In the end, guys, just get on with the job. Give us something that we can all see and use in the life that we work. We will use AI-driven systems in technology and communication, reaching passengers or whatever. We're doing a lot of that already, and we're improving everything we do. But and we have a lot of in-house capability. I have 200 data scientists at PhD and mathematics level working in the company at the moment, doing our own thing, because we're a little bit worried about what's going to be thrust down our throat by the big three.
So it's back to that taking control over the things which are going to be essential to the business. We seem to keep looping around to that. We're going to have to park that last question that I was going to share with you because our time for the session is up, and I can see that John is keen to press ahead with the program. But I'd just like to say thank you very much for sharing your views with us.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, Sir Tim. And be sure to read about the last question and the next issue of Air Transport World. So you will see the answers there. It would have probably been interesting also to hear a bit about, you know, why so many people are being hit by you know, the cyber problems that we see are hitting virtually every day now, and how you would tackle that. So if you could ask Victoria that later on and then write about it so we can all read about it. I hasten to move on because we have a lot of interesting things coming up. I promised you we would get some truth out of Sir Tim, and we certainly did. We are now got a great panel. I call it Panel C because it is the panel about communicate, about coordinate, and about collaborate. And then we adapt change. So it's the 4 C's that we are talking about across the borders. I'll be very quick in the introduction so we can give more time to the panel. We have, first of all, running the panel, moderating our old friend Marc Rochet. If you come up together at the end, so Marc Rochet, who we've seen year after year, and he must be doing a good job because he's always welcomed back, and that's fabulous. He is an industry veteran. He managed a lot of different airlines from the good old French airlines, UTA and TAT and Air Liberté, and so on. He is now the CEO of Air Caraïbes and also runs a consulting company called Aerogestion together with Dominic Reitz. So he will moderate the panel, and on the panel we have 2 distinguished politicians somewhat, but certainly involved in the politics world. We have Jean-François Copé, who is the mayor of Meaux, who we all know does delicious brie, but he has also previously been part of the National Assembly in France from 95, 97, 07 to 17, and he was a minister under Jacques Chirac for different positions, including interior and budget and state reform. And he has then gone into practicing law and taught about his experiences, published several books as well. And since 2018, very interesting, he has been heading the Rosimo Aeroport Public Consortium, which helps 100 different entities or constituents around Paris to make the region into a hub of aerospace innovation and decarbonization. And finally on the panel also we have our old friend Nick Callio, who we also have seen a number of years. He is the president and chief executive of Airlines for America, and as such drives the industry and the voice of the industry for about $1.5 trillion in US economic activity and more than 10 million jobs. Again, he has a background somewhat in politics as an assistant and advisor to both George Bush Sr. and George Bush Jr. In different periods, and was the liaison working with the US Senate and the House of Representatives, formulating and implementing White House strategy and legislative issues. He was also a law partner, so like Mr. Coupé has been involved in that side as well, but for many years now has been the spokesperson of American Airlines as a whole, not the airline, but the whole of American Airlines, and he certainly knows what he's talking about. There is a rumor that he intends to retire from this post, but I promise it will not be the last we will see of Nick Callio. But delighted to see the three of you, so welcome to the panel. Mark will run the panel with Nick and Mr. Coupé. Thank you, Mark. You need the hand mic. Take the hand mic with you. Thanks.
Bonjour to everybody. Thanks to Nick and Jean-François to be here today. And we will start our meeting now by a question to Nick, if you accept. You have been leading for many years Airlines for America. You have been very successful. You have done a lot of things and a great job, and all this built on a very good relationship with all parties, including US administration, airlines, providers, and so and so. And when you built that strong relationship, I think you have done for that a great job on communication, because when you want to build something, you have to communicate to people. So can you tell us how did you do that, and what is the key points you have in mind about building this relationship, which is a key factor for success?
Thank you, Mark. The key to success, I think, always is communication, both on a personal level and on a macro level. And it comes in many forms. And it's always trying to put yourself in another person's shoes. What is their motivation? What do you have to do? And it's been borne out in many, many ways. One of the first things I did, well, first of all, when I was at the White House, I made it a point as a Republican to reach out to Democrats, because you need votes to win. When I got to A4A, which was then called ATA, I reached out to labor because relationships were very poor. And that has borne fruit over time, because the collaboration builds trust. And from trust, you can do things together. And as an industry, we face many, many challenges. And they're not personal to airlines. They matter to our workers, they matter to our unions, and they matter to the flying public and the shipping public. So when we all work together, as we did during COVID, that's when it really bore fruit, because we locked arms with labor and all other aspects of the industry to get the support the airlines needed to stay in business and our employees needed to stay on the job. So it's collaboration, it's communication, it's partnership, and that goes day to day, and it's not a one-time thing. You have to build it over time and stay at it. You don't just show up when you're asking for something.
Thank you. Let's get across the Atlantic from North America to Europe, so to Jean-François. Europe is a different landscape, very different from America.
Jean-François, you have seen, and because you are a passionate guy about aviation, which is a key activity in the sector of Meaux and Charles de Gaulle. So what do you think about the the French and European airline, which has been so, let's say, so weak in communication to public affairs? As Thierry said this morning, everybody is passionate about aviation, but when you speak to aviation, they say, oh, it's a poor thing, don't take a plane, it's not good for humanity, and so and so. So what is your personal vision about the weakness of our communication in Europe about airline industry?
Well, thank you, Mark. First of all, it's a great pleasure for me to be with you today. And since the beginning of this session, I've been listening about all what have been said, and I would like to propose and to share a personal experience with another angle, because I don't want to be repetitive. I heard what said Thierry. Okay, you are not enough vocal. Everything is right. But what is interesting to share, I think, coming from my own experience, is to say that actually it's a political problem, a political issue, a major one. And I would say, to be very precise, a European political issue. Because at the end of the day, you don't have these kind of debates everywhere else in the world. You go to Middle East, to the United States, to Africa, to Asia. This is not in the debate. It's very specifically European debate because of the major question of the climate change. Sorry to be clear, but there is no other... Too much? Excuse me?
Too much?
No, I will come to this point. But the reality of democracy, and this is very interesting to have in mind, and coming from a professional of politics, it's relevant to share that with you, as you are industrials, involved in your own business, to understand the key problem of a political leader is to try to find the path between contradictions. And there is a major one, which is exactly the question of communication. By sending and publishing hundreds of reports coming from everywhere by saying about the danger of the climate change, you brought the European public opinion to a real panic, and especially the young generation, much more than in other continents. And this brought some political leaders to change their mind and to be enabled to make the arbitration that had to be done between industry, economic development, progress, research, and climate change facing. And this is exactly what is at stake right now. And according to me, this problem is now a European problem because we have now to face a sovereignty problem. And we have to turn our model, coming from an economic model, because since 1945 the European countries said we are trying to avoid the World War, so we will make the bet that the economic development will be the good one. But then when appeared all these reports on climate change, all sectors which were excellence sectors of excellence, aircraft, of course, air transport, has been totally bashing because of the climate change. So what is at stake right now is to bring the political leaders in Europe to change their mind and to explain it to the opinion, to their public opinion. Let me give you a very concrete example. As you mentioned, I am leader of a public group that I built with some colleagues, mayors of all around the platform of Roissy, Charles de Gaulle. It's about 500,000 inhabitants, 100 mayors, and we are all over the platform of Roissy working on what can be the future. And if you make the comparison with Orly, which is the other airport, where the citizens, very well organized with activist organization, are saying, how can we reduce the traffic of airplanes on night and so on. We didn't did that. We said, no. The airplanes are what they are. What we want now is to see how we can organize the platform to make sure that our citizens will take the maximum of benefits of the platform of Roissy, which means professional training, jobs, implantation and settlement of companies, partnerships with the Aéroport de Paris, but also with airline companies and so on. It makes a big difference because then the opinion said to their mayors, why? This is an opportunity. So we have the noise of the planes, but we like planes, by the way.
And we have a job.
And we have the job for us or for our children. This means that you can bring the public opinion to have another perception about the economic sectors where you are embodying excellence. Because at the end of the day, the European has a big tradition in automobile, in car sector, like in airplane sector. So my point is to say that if you want really to improve in the question of communication, you have to go back to be the leader of your own narrative sector. Because right now, you have forgot the narrative. The narrative, you are defending yourself. And it's not the good way. I think the good way is trying to bring yourself by saying we are bringing jobs, we are embodying excellency, we have the competitiveness with us. And if you don't do that, of course, you will always be bashed by activists who are working against growth.
Thank you. Nick, when we went through the COVID crisis, it was a tough time at Airlines for America. You did a job to work on public confidence. How will be the future? Nobody knows at that time. Of course, today we know, and Tim said the demand is huge. But 2022, 2023, to rebuild the public confidence in air travel, you cannot say everything will be okay. So you have done a lot of jobs, research, interviews, and this was a key question to save the industry, how we are going to convince people to travel again. So can you tell us about your job? How did you did that, and how many data you got, and so to convince people that air transport will grow again?
That was a
key question, because today we know the answer, but we didn't know the answer in 2022.
We did not know the answer at that time, and we were trying to convince the public that it was safe to fly, and we went in a matter of 2 weeks, basically. We started flying at 4% of what we had been flying, and it was lower. We're flying less jets at that point in March or April than we were in 1954. And we all put out, all of our member airlines put out why it was safe to fly, what they were doing to make sure that airlines were safe. Most people don't know about how often the air refresh gets refreshed on airlines, which is about every 90 seconds through HEPA filters. I became convinced that no matter how much we talked about it until we were blue in the face, we weren't going to be credible saying it. So what we did, I reached out to Boeing, Airbus, all the other OEMs, all the airlines, and labor, and we put together a coalition, and I went to the Harvard School of the National Preparedness Leadership Institute at Harvard and the H.T. Tian School of Health at Harvard, and said, we need a study, independent, and I guaranteed their independence, which was not easy, believe me, with that group. And in 6 months' time, they did the studies, all the air, everything in scientific manner, and they came up with a conclusion that said, you are safer on an airplane than you are in a grocery store, a library, and probably in your own living room. And it was all backed up by independent research. That changed the narrative. If you want to talk about communication, when that study came out, it changed the narrative all through the media. It got great coverage. It was repeated over and over again, and people started to feel like it was safe to fly again. And that backed up with the work that I mentioned earlier, working with our Congress and administration to get the support that our employees needed and we needed. We got up much faster than Europe did in terms of flying again. Faster. And the demand has been just incredible. So again, it comes down to, communicate, coordinate, collaborate, and figure it out.
What was the part done by the
airline staff and employees because they were playing with their own job. So at this time, how did you leverage these people to get more passengers coming back on the flights and so and so? Did you get
Yes.
strong support or
Yes.
not?
No, we got a great response because it was their jobs. And as you all know, as you're an airline employee, as a pilot, a flight attendant, a gate agent, or a mechanic, you don't take 3 weeks or a month off or 6 weeks and get right back on the job. You have to be recertified to do your job, and that takes time. So that's why we got what was called the payroll support program. And our employees were behind us. I recall we wanted to communicate a message of unity, so we had a press conference on Capitol Hill and Capitol in the background with airlines, airline employees, labor union members to say that it's safe to fly, we're all together, and our employees were great. You know, it was our skin, but our skin is their skin. It's a point I made earlier. And they understood that, and we all locked arms and worked together.
Good, good. Jean-François, you are public affairs lawyers. You are a very well-known politician expert in France. We had this morning a question with Thierry about what kind of political leaders can drive this change and this new mind about the aviation industry. What will be your key points, your key recommendation to airline manager to make this transfer to public and population confidence into the airline industry better than today? What are the 3-4 key points?
Well, the third point is to see how you can win the battle of narrative, which is lost today. And if you want to
communication.
Yes, but if you want to do it, you have to talk to the public opinion. Because according to me, the best way to convince the political leaders is to start from the bottom and to tell to the public and to show how the public likes airplanes. Because you were talking with Nick about the COVID period. Have a look to the figures. It's today, and it will be next year, more than in 2019.
Yeah,
the world traffic, the European traffic, and the national traffic. So let's make it clear. At the end of the day, the people love planes. Why? Just because it's for them a new relation with the world, with their own life. It's a philosophical fascination for many, many reasons. So I think you should go back to the fundamental of the problems. I have a regret. Too often, the professionals are talking about technical issues. And I think, you know, the question of revenue, of industry, and you know all that. And you are professional.
Engine, supply chain.
Supply chain, and so on. My point is that you should talk much more about jobs, about concrete results, about progress, and especially the question of the clean planes because of the clean fuel and so on. There are opportunities to do it. And for instance, I organize every year a symposium in Meaux, bringing all the professionals in order to speak about the progress in energies, clean energies, and so on. And people are there, and there is a large audience because people are very much interested in that. So I think if you can bring the people to understand that there is a mix totally relevant between air transport and clean energies, you will change the deal. And the second point, which is, according to me, very, very important, is to remind to everybody what happens when you make very heavy political mistakes. Have a look to what happened to the nuclear energy. You remember, all of you, that nuclear was a very excellent, a part of excellence in our industry. For 10 or 15 years, or 20 years, the activists were against nuclear, and you remember how we have to change the mind very quickly after Ukrainian invasion, which is probably the only positive point of this tragedy, is to go back to nuclear energy. Have a look to what happens to the car sector today. which is dying, I mean the European one, only because we were too far on the objective of 35. I was listening to what said Thierry at the beginning of the morning. He's right about the fact that there is a review clause next year. But you imagine how the damages that have been done. Okay? So according to me, this language has to be put on the table every day to the public opinion and to the leaders, to the political leaders.
So communication and courage.
Exactly.
Let's go to a final question, because there is a large assembly here from people with all, as Jean-Louis said, from all over the world. Nick, can you tell us what will be your vision, not speaking about USA and Airlines for America, not speaking about your president, your new one, what you will recommend to countries in Africa, what you will recommend to different parts of the world about this issue? It is something they need to begin to build now, because it will be a future problem. How do you need to organize themselves, alone or together? How can we transfer your experience from US America to let's say, to Africa, for example?
I think you can, Mark. Again, it gets down to what we're talking about on this panel and the title of the panel. When it comes to all airlines all across the world, you know, at Airlines for America, we like to say we connect the world. We spend a lot of time in Europe, in South America, in Asia, talking to governments. And in many cases, and I think frankly in Europe, the airlines don't talk enough to their government in a unified fashion, and that's the key. You find your common purpose, and that's what airlines or aviation in Africa should be doing. Find your common purpose among yourselves. Speak with your government about the practical impact of the decisions they make, because there is an impact, and they can be made improperly and have a lasting impact. But if you show unity of purpose, if you talk about the jobs, how you drive an economy, and what we do for you to get people and packages or parts all across, it makes a real difference. Because, well, like it or not, in the aviation industry, governments across the world are our partners, and we have to treat them as such. We may not always like them. Sometimes they can be very difficult partners, but you work through that by communicating and advocating and using facts.
Communication, again. Jean-François, not the same question, but from your position, this communication issue, this absolutely need to transfer the vision of the public regarding the airline industry, it's a French issue or it's a European issue?
Well, both, of course, because as you know...
difficult to manage, huh?
It's difficult to manage, but it's difficult to manage also because if you are all defending the same cause, you don't have the same interest, and so you don't speak with the same voice. But I think, well, I don't like utopia. I don't like to talk about things that will never happen. I mean, when you say you have to be unified, you have to say the same thing, actually you will not. Because competition, because there is no alignment of interest every time in any issues, even in this sector. So what you can do as efficient as possible is trying to convey one message, which is to say air transport is not a sector as the other one. It's a question of sovereignty, it's a question of defense, it's a question of capacity for our continent to be self-sufficient, from the aircraft, you see the fantastic adventure of Airbus, to the fuel, the e-fuel. Because if you are able to build a European SAF, you will not be prisoner of importing oil from Russia, which is not done anymore, and from America, and so on.
Not South Russian.
That's it. No, of course not. But what I mean is to say that on these questions, it's a European and a national challenge, which is to say that it needs to be a political priority. So we have to change mind, and if we want to change mind, we need to have the support of the public opinion, and to have it bring the maximum of communication on all the benefits of a sector like this one, coming from a European and French point of view.
Cross fingers to do it. John, some question from the room because I see the timeline coming on.
No,
so
I don't have any questions coming through, so we can wrap up maybe with a final comment or.
Yeah, Nick, what at the final stage? Is it a question of people leading this industry, or is it a question of money?
It's probably both.
Yeah, but
money matters, but no, it's a matter of people leading the industry. And you need to get ahead of issues. You need to know what's coming around the corner. You need to envision what your problems are going to be and start dealing with them early. And that's, again, a matter of communication, both in terms of the facts that you convey, but how you convey them publicly and the message to the public and to the governments. You make it a political priority, and it helps. And, you know, the narrative in Europe right now is one that is going to be difficult, but rather than everybody, not everybody, but many of our airline partners across Europe say, you know, well, we can't argue with a mandate about sustainable aviation fuel. Well, you can't argue against it because maybe you'll make some adjustments to it so it becomes more available and you can use it. But again, in answer to your question, Mark, I think it is a matter of people leading, but people representing who they represent.
Thank you. Jean-François, last question. Europe is a democracy so far. France is a democracy. How can we manage the public demand on air transport and this image we have today about an aviation which is burning fuel and so and so? As a democracy, how can we do it? Is it a question of leaders? Is it a question of lobbying? What is your feeling?
Well, it's first of all a question of mindset.
Yeah.
That's why the difference between a head of state and a simple common political leader is when you are a real statesman, you are able to convey a message of long-term vision. And that's exactly what is lacking today. According to me, when you are in an emergency financial issue, increase taxes against aircraft, you are exactly at the opposite of what means political courage. According to me, we need to show that we have a long-term vision, and this is exactly what the public opinions are asking. And that's why we are today facing a terrible crisis in democracy. It's because the people say you are inefficient, you are lying, and you don't have leadership. Have a look to dictators, by the way. And so this is the danger for us. Yeah. And a sector like this one, which is a sector of freedom, of economic development, of future, of intelligence, needs to be, at the end of the day, a model and not a counter model. And this is a part of the game that has to be played by the political leaders and by the professionals.
So, democracy will survive with a strong leadership.
Exactly, as usual.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much to Marc, Jean-François, Nick. I see that there was some questions set up to me, but it didn't arrive with me, so I have to check the technical, why it didn't arrive me. But we'll have to do it, they will ask you questions later on in the lunch break. But I will check also why it didn't arrive with me, so I apologize for that. We move on to a session that I'm really looking forward to. We are going to speak about when science exceeds fiction. We're going to hear from Dr. Patrick Michel, who's an international expert of asteroids. You know, there's lots of jokes you could say. He's had a meteoric rise in the industry, and he's caught between a rock and a hard place. But he is definitely an expert in an area that we all want to try and listen to and exciting. He is the CV and bio that I received with the most complex abbreviations I've ever heard, so I won't read it. But he is the director of research of exceptional class at the French Scientific Research National Center. He's also a global fellow at the University of Tokyo. He's written over 240 publications. He's spoken all around the world. He's written numerous books on the subject. and he has been given a lot of medals and awards for his work in the asteroid field. He also, which is interesting for some people, works with Sir Brian May, who some of you may know as a certain guitarist from the band Queen. But you will hear more about that. But I'm sure that he was the inspiration behind We Will Rock You. For those of you, rock you, yes, I get it. But we will hear much more about that. So it's a fascinating subject. He's asked to speak about 2 hours on the subject. We don't have that, but we'll give him as much time as possible, and we look forward to listening to you. Thanks very much for coming.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. I want to thank first Sandrine SAINT-SAUVEUR for inviting me, as well as Pascal Parent, to give this talk. I know it's lunchtime, so you may be hungry. So I hope I will allow you to go upper than when you are in the air in an airplane, because I'm going to transport you very far in the solar system. So what I'm going to tell you about is what we did recently, and what we are doing in order to protect our planet from an asteroid impact. And we did better than science fiction. You may recall, for some of you, this movie Meteor with Sean Connery and Natalie Wood, where the Russians and the Americans have to admit that they have rockets, nuclear rockets pointed to their countries, so that they can move their direction towards space and deflect an asteroid. That was actually a fun movie. Other more recent movies are Armageddon, of course, and all we do is to try to save Bruce Willis because he died in Armageddon. And Don't Look Up, which actually is very interesting because it shows the problem of communication. How, when you have an identified risk and you are a scientist, you go to, to a journal, to a main news channel, and they give you only 2 minutes to explain something between an influencer that want to sell their last shampoo and another subject which has nothing to do with it. And also how to address that to politicians who usually don't have much science background, and some of them don't even care about it. So this is a difficulty we have currently, is to reintroduce science in the society, because it's very important. The world is more and more technological, and we need to understand at least key concepts, and especially the politicians who have to take decisions based on what the scientists say when they identify something. And Don't Look Up was very good for that, but we did better. We exceeded fiction because for the first time in the history, we deflected an asteroid with a spacecraft. And here you can see an animation, but you're going to see the real movie. And, it's better than fiction because we even have rock stars supporting us. You see Brian May. Brian May is an astrophysicist. He works with us. He's very supportive. He likes rock, and we study rocks, so it's sort of consistent. And I'm going to tell you about this story. But before that, we're going to talk about asteroids, because what we are doing is to try to prevent the impact of an asteroid. But what is an asteroid? So let me go back in the solar system 4.5 billion years ago. So 4.5 billion years ago, our solar system was what is represented here, which is a star surrounded by gas and dust. So dust was very small. Initially, you only had gas and little solids with the size of my hairs, and they started to collide together and grow bigger and bigger bodies. Some of them became planets, but some of them just grew until 100 kilometers maximum and never were captured in the planet. And this is what we call asteroids. These are the remnants of the bricks that form the planet. And they have an advantage, is that contrary to planets, they were never heated, and therefore they kept the memory of the original composition of the solar system. When you look now at planets, here you can see the sun, which has more than 99% of the mass of the solar system, and you have these terrestrial planets, Mercury, Venus, the Earth, and Mars, and then you have the giant planets. They are like a cake. When you look at a cake, you don't have the recipe. Why? Because from when the ingredients were put in a bowl and from where you have a cake, there was heating processes that transformed chemically the composition. The planets are like cakes. They have been heated, so when you look at the material on Earth, the oldest one is much younger than the age of the solar system. Asteroids, which are now parked for most of them between Mars and Jupiter, They are small enough that they give you the ingredients that form the planet and their composition. So if you want to cook, make a recipe of how to do a solar system, by studying asteroids, you do so. So most of them are now between Mars and Jupiter, and what we call the asteroid belt. Of course, if I was on solo in my Faucon Millennium, and I would go through the asteroid belt, I wouldn't see anyone, because they are very small in a very large space. So we have more than 1 million asteroids now discovered, but it's actually, you need to use a law of celestial mechanics and math. Math is very useful to be able to reach an asteroid when you want to visit it, because they are very small in a very empty space, and they don't even have a lot of gravity because they are small. So you really need to target well. Jupiter was very fundamental for us, so I only have 40 minutes to talk with you. I'm here the whole day. I cannot talk about everything, but if you have questions, you can come to me. Let me just show you an image of Jupiter that was given by the Juno mission by NASA recently. This is Jupiter. This is fantastic. I mean, we are at 1 billion kilometers from Earth. This is a 300 mass of the Earth. It's enormous. So if you take a watermelon, this is Jupiter, and the Earth is a green pea. So we are very small, and I often say that astrophysicists are bad business people, because if I was a good businessman, I would ask an artist to sign one of these, and I would sell that in a contemporary art exhibition with no problem. So this is mainly gas, hydrogen, helium, ammoniac, and a lot of vortices, because you have a different speed at different latitude of Jupiter, so you have shearing going on that gives you these superb vortices that have the size of the Earth, by the way. So nature is really beautiful. And Earth is very small, and this is shown in this next picture, which shows you now Saturn, so we are even at larger distance from the Sun, and the Earth is this teeny point. You can see this teeny point is us. And this is crazy, because when you select a crew to go on a ship, to go through the ocean, you make sure that they have cohesion, because if they don't get along together, they may kill each other in an empty ocean, and that's bad. Well, the Earth is actually a ship. It's totally isolated. And for me, it's still impossible to believe that we fight against each other on such a small thing, where we depend, all of us, on the same resources, and we cannot escape. There is no plan B. We will send people to Mars, that probably will happen, but not a civilization. We already have a hard time to make our civilization survive on the very planet that was formed for us. So don't believe that. So we have to be extremely careful about our planet. And to do so, we need to travel. Contrary, I agree with Jean-François Copé. Travel is essential, because everything we can do now relies on international cooperation. There is no one country that can tackle the big challenges we have simply because of money, but also because we need different cultures and different expertise to tackle the challenges we have. So let me go back to asteroids. One of the challenges is to make sure none of them come on us, like for the dinosaurs. And this now shows you the trajectories of what we call near-Earth asteroids, so the one that cross the orbit of the Earth. So the big circle is Jupiter. The Mars is here, and then you have these trajectories, which tells you that some of them cross the orbit of the Earth. Most of them come from the asteroid belt. There are some unstable zones between Mars and Jupiter that can send an object close to the Earth. I can explain later if you want. And that's how we have this impact rate, which has been more or less constant during the last 4 billion years. And how do we know that? Thanks to the moon. Because, of course, on the Earth, you have the atmosphere that filters the smaller objects. You have ocean, water, so when an asteroid impacts, it makes ploof. And you have erosion. On the moon, there is nothing of that. So the moon kept the memory, the record of all the impact it experienced during the last 4 billion years. And by counting and dating the craters, we are able to estimate the frequency of impact of objects as a function of their size. And I will come back to that. So these are the ones that eventually can collide with the Earth. But you can see, don't read this, I will tell you what I want to say with that, but you can see that there are many reasons to study asteroids. First, science reasons, because they are the best tracers of the solar system history, and this is important. I didn't say also that they may have brought the material that allowed life to emerge on Earth. And I'm going to show you that just later. Because at the end of the formation of the Earth, there was a lot of impact. And these impacts were with objects which were rich in water and in organic material, and therefore they may be at the origin of life on Earth. Then there is planetary defense, how to protect ourselves, and then there are people who are interested to use them as resources. And all these objectives need the same knowledge, what they are made of, what are their structure, how they respond to a tool to extract some material, and that's why you have all these missions which are currently either flying or in development. So more than 10 missions can be flyby, so we just fly by asteroids, we don't stay, or rendezvous missions, or even sample return mission. I will show you an example. It's really absolutely fantastic. And you can see that you have many players. You have NASA, Japanese Space Agency, European Space Agency, China, and even the Emirates, who have their own mission to 7 asteroids. So now more and more countries are interested in these objects, and by studying them with space missions. And why do we need space missions? Is because when you look at an asteroid from the Earth, it's what you see here, this line, white line, which is just due to the fact that an asteroid moves on the sky, contrary to planets, but it's very faint because it only reflects the surface, the light from the surface. It doesn't emit its own light. These are just rocks, basically. So astronomers try from the Earth to extract as much information as possible from this light, and we are able to extract some information. But we cannot access what is really important for us, is what are the detailed properties of the surface. It's important because if I want to deflect an asteroid by doing an impact, I need to know whether I deal with a rock, with a sponge, with a sand, or with, solid metal. And that I cannot know from the Earth. If I want to get a sample from it, to exploit it or to do science, again, what kind of tool do I use? Do I need a sledgehammer or just a spoon? That also I cannot do from the Earth. So luckily, since the 1990s, we have space missions going to visit them, and they revealed their fascinating diversity and geology. And you can see here a few images of asteroids that we have. So these are going from 20 kilometers like Eros to only 300 meters, so 2 times the size of a football stadium for Itokawa. And you can see the different shapes. They can be spherical, they can be like a spinning top, like a peanut, like a sea otter. So that's already something interesting. And even more, on one object, you have an incredible diversity of geological features, from landslides to boulder fields, even natural ejection of particles, craters. These are the expressions of the process they experience during their lifetime. So as detectives, we try to understand why there is a landslide, what was the process, so that we can go back in the solar system history, because then we know what happened to them and how they responded. But what is more intriguing, and I'm going to show you an example, is that when you see an image, you think that you understand whether the body is solid or soft. Like if I look at this image on the top, I see a lot of boulders. Of course, if you send me a boulder on my head, I know it will hurt because in principle it's solid. Well, on an asteroid, it's not so clear, and I'm going to show you. They have a very counterintuitive behavior because they have a small gravity. If I'm on a Ryugu, which is only 900 meters in size, if I jump like this, I don't come back. Because to escape from its gravity, I only need to go at 20 centimeters per second. 20 centimeters, take a rule, 20 centimeters, count 1 second, it's nothing. So everything is very sensitive. If I want to escape from the Earth, I need to jump at 11 kilometers per second. So of course, there is a totally different behavior. It's very counterintuitive because our experience is on the daily Earth, and I'm going to show you. So in 2016, we launched a mission called OSIRIS-REx by NASA. You can see here the trajectory going to the asteroid Bennu. Surprisingly, the orbit of Bennu is the same as the Earth, and it took 2 years to go there. Why? Because you cannot do it directly. When you visit a celestial body, if you go directly to it, you just fly by, because you will need an incredible amount of gas in order to brake and go close to it. So in fact, what we do is that we just do orbits around the sun, and little by little, we reach the same orbit as the asteroid. And mathematically, we are able even to compute that we can come very close to the Earth at some moment to benefit from the attraction of the Earth to accelerate for free, and then reach the body without too much gas. And this is shown here. That's why it takes so much time. So we make rounds around the sun. We try to pass by planets to accelerate, and then you arrive. And on the 3rd December 2018, this is what we found. So this is a 500-meter object, very small, at 300 million kilometers from the Earth. So we are at 1,000 times the distance from the sun to the moon. And this is what we found. And this is actually funny for me, not for the engineers, but we told the engineers who were supposed to land the spacecraft for a few seconds, I'm going to show you, to get some samples. They asked the scientists, what kind of accuracy of navigation do we need to land? Can we have just 50-meter accuracy, meaning that when the spacecraft goes down, he doesn't know where he goes by 50 meters? And we say, yeah, don't worry, there will be sand beaches like in Saint-Tropez where I was born, no problem. When we got this first image, and I always say that to the young people, work, do efforts, love science, and accept the long term, because it's really satisfying when you eventually go where you want to go. Because this image, before that, this asteroid was for us just a mathematical model, which by the way was completely wrong. When we arrive, we get the first image of a new body. We feel like Christophe Colomb, exploring a new continent, but it's not linked to the Earth. It's at 300 million kilometers from the Earth. And it's absolutely crazy. And it's crazy for two reasons. Why? Because the real image reveals to us, and it's also crazy because it has nothing to do with what we were thinking. So when we saw that, in the operation room, you had two behaviors. The scientists, like me, were super happy. Wow, we don't understand anything. This is fantastic. How is it possible that there are so many boulders, etc.? Scientists are always happy. When they are wrong, they like to be surprised. When they are right, they made a prediction. So for us, no problem. Engineers, on the other hand, they were looking at us and say, guys, you told that there would be sand beaches like 500 meters. Where are they? Well, they were not. And therefore, they had to revise entirely their strategy of navigation in order to improve the accuracy of landing. And I'm going to show you that I had to shrink it to 10 meters. So just look at these images. It's crazy. I mean, we are at 300 million kilometers from the Earth. Look at these images. For me, I can keep looking at that. There is a variety of rocks, of morphologies, things that we still don't really understand. By the way, this body is very dark. It's much darker than the background. So I push the contrast. It's like charcoal. So already for the navigation, you have a dark body. Then it's very underdense. It's a rock that you put on water. It almost floats because the density is just above that of water. So you can see that we have very exotic rocks in space. Just to show you a few images, this is about 14 meters 8. You can see so we have to land on that, I repeat. Another one, fortunately, we found some craters. You can see here a crater. So of course, when you have an impact, it moves the big rocks away. And okay, the engineers start to say, maybe we'll find some rooms. And we had, by the way, the help of Brian May, the guitarist of Queen, who came with us in the operation room because he can do some 3D images based on 2D one. He does stereoscopy like the ice. So we could better measure the height of the rocks because the constraint for the engineers was we can land if we have rocks which are not higher than 1 meter. So we had to find that. And eventually we found this site, Nightingale. So you can see it's only 10 meters. 10 meters, so imagine you are at 300 million kilometers from Earth, and you have to land a spacecraft in a 10-meter zone to get a sample. Okay, I can tell you how we revise the navigation strategy, but I'm going to go through. So this is the sampling operation. So the spacecraft has a boom of 3 meters, on the bottom of which there is a cylinder, and then slowly and autonomously, using machine learning in order to be able to identify the dangerous zones. That's what we had to train the spacecraft to do for a few months. It goes down gently, and when it touches the surface, it releases nitrogen gas, And the nitrogen gas allows, this is a microgravity experiment, the nitrogen gas allows to basically put grains of the surface into some chambers. And this is crazy. We did it. The target was to take 60 grams. 60 grams was the goal given to NASA to succeed the operation. And now I'm going to show you, this is a real image on the 20th of October 2020. You can see the cylinder on the bottom. It's going to touch, and then we got a lot of material. So what was totally unexpected is when the surface was touched, there was no reaction, like if it was entering into a fluid, into a liquid. And this is totally contradictory to the image before. You see there are some pebbles. For me, a pebble is solid. And in fact, no, it just touched and went basically through the surface. And it's because we activated the thrusters that the spacecraft went away again. Otherwise, maybe we would go through the whole asteroid. So that was very successful, so much successful that we got 120 grams of samples. You can see here the parachute and the capsule coming back in the atmosphere in 2023, a moment where we all cried, of course. And we got some samples in Nice, where I live. And to tell you the anecdote, this is a $1 billion mission. So the mission cost $1 billion. We got some samples from 300 million kilometers from Earth. And you know how we received the sample by NASA at my observatory? By a FedEx envelope. And the funny thing is that we were super excited, so we invited the press, etc., to say, okay, the samples from an asteroid come in France. And the guy arrived with a FedEx truck, and he was thinking, hola, what's going on? What's in this envelope, drug or something? No, just 100 milligram of extraterrestrial samples. And we are analyzing, and by the way, what we find in these samples are water, amino acids, even bases of NRA. So the link between life and asteroids starts to be even more solid than before. Okay, but the point was to say that also Bennu has a non-probability of impacting the Earth in, 2182, so I think we are safe, and that's in about a century, and plus you can see the level of probability is not that high. And that give me the possibility to introduce planetary defense. Planetary defense is the field that takes care of this risk of an impact of an asteroid with the Earth, and for which we made this first asteroid deflection test involving NASA, European Space Agency, and I should also mention JAXA, because on the European Space Agency mission HERA, which I'm leading, there is a thermal infrared imager provided by the Japanese. The hazard by the numbers. So just first of all, let me be clear, because there are enough problems in the world. For the moment, we are safe. We don't have any identified object that pose a threat. Bennu, very small probability in more than 100 years, that's okay. For all the objects we know, we don't have an identified threat. What we can say is that on the long term, we know it will happen. Maybe on the shorter term than we think, by the way, we never know. And we also know that it's better to be ready before we need it, with a big advantage. Is that contrary to many other natural hazards, there is a way to predict it, this one, and to prevent it with reasonable means. We will never be able to prevent an earthquake. This, we can take care of it. And that's, I feel that it is our responsibility to make sure we are ready before it happens, because you have this advantage that we can be ready. The dinosaurs, as I say, would have loved to have space agencies to take care of them. So let's not make the same mistake. You can see that the impact frequencies are very small. For the 10-kilometer objects, which are the kind of size which cause the extension of the dinosaur, the frequencies are every 100 million years, and we know them all. The 1-kilometer object, which is a threshold for global effect on the world, we know them all, by the way, and there is no threat for at least a century or so, and the impact frequency is about every 500,000 years. Now we are taking care of the 140 meters objects, which is a threshold for at least small country or regional damages. We only know 40%, so we want to, better safe than sorry, so we want to observe the other ones. And we're going to launch a space telescope with NASA in 2028 that will allow us to make the inventory of these objects within 10 years. So you can see that at least to know them all and to be able to anticipate, it's possible and we're going to do it. So that's the good thing. Here you can see the explosion that we have in the atmosphere for the last 25 years. We have about 1 Hiroshima bomb exploding in the atmosphere every year. Of course, most often it's over water, over a desert, we don't see it. But sometimes it happens over a city. So in Chelyabinsk in 2013, there was a meteor that exploded at 27 kilometers in the atmosphere, was 20 meters in size. And you could see, because this was in Russia, and they all have videos, cameras on their cars, because if they have an accident, they have to prove they were not guilty. And therefore, you can see this little bolide arriving. We have a lot of videos showing that. And because of the light emitted, the people went at their windows, because they are curious like me, and when it exploded, they received the glasses on their eyes, and there were 1,000 injuries. So that was a big deal in Russia at this moment. And in fact, sometimes you have to choose when you take your coffee, because this lady is just relaxing, and then boom. Yeah, the guy is, that's good. The instinct of survival is when you don't know what happened, then you leave. Yeah. And be careful which door you are behind, because you don't want that to happen, right? So that was in 2013, during the time when at the UN we were setting up 2 groups to take care of this problem. That was exactly the same day. And we received some phone call from journalists saying, hey, you saw this body? What is he talking about? And we are actually defining how to prevent an asteroid impact. Another thing, I won't talk about it now, but you can ask me the question, because a lot of news are talking about it. Yesterday, an interstellar object, so just an object passing through the solar system and going away, called 3I Atlas, made its smallest approach to the sun. That was yesterday. Unfortunately, the Earth was on the opposite, so we could not see it, but we're going to catch him up. And there are a lot of stories around that, but we can talk about it at lunchtime. Okay, planetary defense is therefore prediction, so anticipating the risk. You know now that we are working on it. Mitigation, I'm going to talk to you about. And international coordination. Let me say one word about international coordination. Because now many countries have realized that we can do something about it. And by the way, it inspires a lot the young generation, because I have a lot of students wanting to work on this topic, because it's super cool. You know, you want to deflect an asteroid. So it's a way also to, make sure the young generation go back to science and have more hope, because as we said before, they are very anxious. And that's not a good attitude. You don't solve problems by being anxious. You solve them because you are aware of the difficulties, but you fight. And life is hard. Sometimes we fail. That's fine. I failed a lot of time. Actually, the mission I'm going to talk to you about was 20 years of fight to get the budget. And we failed 3 times before arriving at it. And as I said to the new CNES president, if you want to decrease my enthusiasm, you have to kill me. So yes, so that's a thing for the young people. We have to make them aware of the fact that it's not because it's difficult and it's not because we don't succeed everything that you shouldn't fight for it. Anyway, so now we have planetary defense office in different countries, NASA, JAXA, Japan, and even Europe. And we have also in United Nations 2 groups that take care of this risk. I have a lot of anecdotes about that. I can talk to you about it later. But just to say, to start to be organized at international level. Of course, UN has no authority. Every country can make its own decision. But we hope that by offering an international protocol that works, it will be chosen when something happens. And we are not ready yet. We are exercising and trying to get prepared to all the scenarios, which can be plenty. But I don't have time to talk more about it, because I want to show you the fun part, which is one of the aspects is this asteroid deflection. So now I have to tell you a little more in details. So the point was to try to deflect an asteroid using what we call a kinetic impactor. A kinetic impactor is simply a spacecraft, the whole spacecraft sent at 24,000 kilometers per hour on an asteroid to shoot on it and, like pull, deflect it from its trajectory. But because the first time we do it, and it's just a test, we don't want to deflect an object from its trajectory around the sun, because we may put it on the wrong trajectory, so we don't want to create the risk we try to prevent. So in order to just do a test, we chose what we call a binary asteroid. So you have 15% of asteroids that are like the Earth and the Moon at small scale, double. The biggest one, Didymos, is 800 meters in size, and the smallest one, Dimorphos, is 150 meters in size. This is a small moon. And what we're going to do is to try to shoot on the small moon to deflect its trajectory around the main body. So that for a test, it's okay. We can transpose to what happened around the sun. And so that whatever we do, we don't pose any risk to the Earth. So we do that with a spacecraft, and then we have another spacecraft coming and measuring the outcome. But meantime, because there was a delay between the two spacecraft, we make sure that we do it when the asteroid is the closest to the Earth, so that with ground-based observation, we can measure something. I'm going to show you. So, no, that I will show you later if I have time. It's an introduction of the mission. So these are the sites we are talking about. I know there was the president of the Emirate Agency, so we have the Burj Khalifa, who is here with Didymos. And because we have a French former minister, I have the Eiffel Tower. It's actually half the size of the Eiffel Tower, Dimorphos. This is misleading because we don't know the shape. And that's the key point, is that when we send the spacecraft, we don't know nothing about the asteroid except the size. Whether it is elongated or spherical, we don't know. What are the structures, we don't know. So the spacecraft will discover the object just a few minutes before the impact, and autonomously with a camera will have to orient itself to shoot into it. That was the test. To do that, basically. So you have the whole washing machine, 500 kilogram, launched at 24,000 kilometers per hour, 6 kilometers per second, and we want to shoot and see what happens. And what can happen? Well, this moon rotates during 11 hours and 55 minutes. So the time it takes to make one turn around the big body is 11 hours, 55 minutes. And we shoot in the opposite direction to the motion. So in principle, we reduce this time, called the orbital period, by an amount that we don't know. Depend on the efficiency. It can be a few minutes to a few tens of minutes, and that's what we want to observe. And if we can do it when the asteroid is close enough from the Earth, actually it will be 11 million kilometers from the Earth, then with observation from the ground, you can measure it. Because when the small moon goes in front of the big one, it makes a shadow. And the time between two shadows gives you the time it takes to make one rotation. You do it before the impact, 11 hours, 55 minutes. You do it after the impact, and you know how much you reduced this time. I hope you follow me. Because even myself, I'm not sure. So, math. Math is essential in life. We launched DART. The first mission was called DART. We launched it on 24th November 2021. Look, we launched. Didymos is there so that 10 months later, the impact occurs when they are the closest. And we knew 2 hours after the launch of DART, by 1 second accuracy, when the impact will occur. So on the 24th November 2021, after 2 hours of launch, we knew the impact would occur on the 26th September 2022 at 7:14 p.m. and 42 seconds. That's math. That's fantastic. And even when it works, I know it works. I'm surprised. So this is a washing machine I'm talking about, big solar panels. We launch everything. You know, this is Americans. They launch, sorry for the Americans. I shouldn't say that. But yeah, but it's efficient, you will see. This is the first image we got. So now we are in the operation center. We are the 26th September. This was a mathematical model for us until this image. We know the spacecraft is now autonomous, so we go out with the students, etc. And when we receive this email, it has nothing to do with what we thought. You can ask me why later, but you can be sure it's clear because you can see my face when you receive this image. The sky is falling on my head. What is this beast? And by the way, we're going to shoot on this one. And this is the impact. So we are 5 minutes before impact. I accelerate by 10. This is a big one. This is a small one. It's not smooth and linear because the thrusters are continuously adjusting the direction so that we are sure that the spacecraft goes onto the small one. And now it's written precision locked, meaning that, okay, the spacecraft is now on the asteroid, and we just have to look at how it looks like, because the images reveal at us. You can see up, it approached full of boulders, and then the very last image, we don't have it because it exploded. But it was successful. And I know that people like that I show the next video. It was asked by a French TV who wanted me to film the moment when we discovered the image. So forgive me for being like a child, but I know people like it, so let's do it. Oh, no, sorry, I come back. So we are basically with all the people in the room now. We just have to admire the historical moment. This is the first time that an object is deflected by humans from its trajectory. So let's see if it goes. So we see the image coming. At each image, of course, we scream, and we know it's going to happen now. Yeah, this is, you know, 20 years of work makes you become crazy. Yeah, well, okay. This is why we do science. And now the last image, yeah. As I said, these are human adventures. By the way, this is shown in high schools, and after that, many young people want to be scientists. So, you know, okay. Okay, so, okay, thank you. We are children in the heart, you know. So this is an image given after the impact by ground-based observations, and you can see the elevation of the brightness just because there was so much dust, which is very reflective, that the brightness increased. But what scared me was this dust going away. I thought we exploded Dimorphos. Oh, we are more efficient than I thought. Fortunately, no. We reduced the orbital period by 33 minutes. So from 11 hours and 55, now we are 11 hours and 22 minutes. And this is a superb image given by the Hubble telescope later, where you see 10 million kilograms of dust escaping, pushed by the solar radiation pressure, are more than 10,000 kilometers away. So here we have a scale of about 20,000 kilometers. So we basically made a comet, which is amazing. This is the last image we have. We know it doesn't exist anymore like this, but we don't know how it is now because, of course, the spacecraft exploded. And it's important to measure the efficiency and to test our numerical models of impact to know whether we made a crater, in which case what is the size and the depth of the crater, or whether we entirely reshape the body. Again, this image doesn't exist anymore. These rocks have exploded, and even the whole system has changed because some of the material ejected from this Dimorphos went into this one. So everything changed. And we want to know. We need to know because this is the final outcome. We need to understand to make this test reproducible for other scenarios. The only thing we did is numerical impact models, very complex, rock fragmentation, etc. And what we think is that we entirely reshaped the asteroid, but it's not sure. So in order to understand whether this happened with Europe, we have our detective, Hera. It's like the Colombo detective, you know, he knows the criminal initially and then he makes the investigation. Well, that's the same. We have a detective going back to the crime scene done by NASA and try to understand what happened. And this is actually the first time, and I'm very proud that Europe is doing that we have, for this space exploration of a small body, not only a mother spacecraft, a big spacecraft, but also 2 CubeSats. You know, the new space now, so we're going to release 2 CubeSats at proximity of the asteroid to make closer inspections because they are cheaper, we can take more risks. So this is absolutely fascinating, and I have 1 minute to talk to you about it. So I'm going to be very fast, but I can maybe negotiate 2 more. So this is basically, I have some anecdotes, I just want just one. So this is when we build the spacecraft. So you know we have to put many, many things on us to protect everything because everything has to be in a void, blah, blah, blah. And after building the spacecraft in the clean room for 6 months, we removed it, and then we discovered that during the 6 months there was a bat in the room. Batman. I don't even know how she survived, by the way, because somebody must have put some food in it. I don't know. So you see, sometimes you see, wow, they are super protected, etc. And then, in fact, you have a bat in the room. So this is a spacecraft built and tested. You have a lot of tests I can talk to you about. This is electromagnetic compatibility. When you have different instruments, you want to make sure that they don't perturb each other, like when the phone rings in a car and you have the radio making krrrr. Then you have the launch. Launch was with a Falcon 9 at Cap Canaveral. I have another anecdote, but I really don't have time to say it, so I will pass. The only thing I'm going to say is that we are lucky because we had the Helen hurricane 1 week before the launch, and the very day of the launch, there was a Milton one coming. And the launch, we had a window which every day for a few days gave us 16 seconds. So every day you only have 16 seconds to launch. So if the guy who had the button cough for 16 seconds, it's over. You have to wait the next day. And then we had it coming. We are very scared. This is when I left Cocoa Beach with my car to go to Cap Canaveral, the weather. We had 80% chance to not be able to launch. And then 20 minutes before launch, a miracle happened, and the sky stopped raining, no wind, and we could launch. And this is a launch with a Falcon 9.
1, ignition, engines full power, and lift off. Go Hera, go Falcon, go SpaceX.
So you hear again a scream, but that's normal. These are again moments where you are both scared and both happy, but mostly scared. So Falcon 9 brought Hera to space. This is the very last image of Hera released by the last stage of the Falcon. And of course, there is no other camera that can take Hera image, so bye-bye. This is our small spacecraft. These are images of the team. You see the team that we have. Jean-Jacques Dordain, the former DG of ESA, with the Columbia, not the Columbia, it was Discovery Shuttle in Cap Canaveral. So it's, as I said, a human adventure because we work for 20 years on these kind of things. So we know the children of everybody. We know the wife or the husband or the former wife, the new one, etc. Because over 20 years, statistically, many things change. So yes. And this is the last image we have from the Earth and the Moon when Hera leaves and goes toward Mars, because you're going to see we do a Mars flyby. So this is what the astronauts that will go to Mars would see. The Earth and the Moon going away. The last image is at about 6 million kilometers from the Earth. So it's kind of, and you can see it, it's empty. Okay, so now we are in a trajectory toward Mars. I will skip that because I want to talk about, so this is, let me show you. We made a flyby of Mars, and this is an image we took about one of the small moons of Mars. Mars has 2 moons, but only a few tens of kilometers wide. This is called Deimos, with Mars in the background. It's absolutely fantastic. It's 12 kilometers in size. And I want to say, because I think there are some Japanese in the room, the JAXA is going to launch next year a mission called MMX to get a sample from the other moon called Phobos to return it to Earth. And France, by the way, CNES and DLR, have built a rover, and I'm the leader of the rover, the science lead, that will be on this mission, that will be the first rover to roll on a small moon of Mars. And this, I'm very proud that France is part of it. And again, you see international cooperation, French working with Germans, with Japanese, and there is even NASA. It's fantastic. Okay, last thing I want to say, because I'm running out of time. So so this is the last thing. Friday the 13th, no risk, 2029. Of course, when you say Friday the 13th and no risk, it doesn't go together, but believe me. Plus, when you know that the asteroid is called the Apophis, which is a god of chaos, now I'm not credible at all anymore. But this object is coming at 32,000, just 1 minute, 32,000 kilometers from the Earth, which is below the orbit of the geosynchronous satellites, which makes this 300-meter body, so twice the size of the football stadium. You want to think I'm a fan of foot? No, but it's just to make an analog. We see the light with naked eyes from Europe, Africa, unfortunately not Japan, not US, because it will be the day. But 2 billion people will see the light of an asteroid with naked eyes. This occurs only every 7,000 years. So we made the UN pass a resolution that makes of 2029 the International Year of Asteroid Awareness and Planetary Defense. First, to make sure that people understand there is no risk, because I see already the conspiracy theories. No, we are sure it doesn't come to the Earth. It's actually a fantastic spectacle. And because it comes so close, we think that the tidal forces, so if you want the variation of the gravity of the Earth while it comes at closer distance and then go away, can make some surface motions and maybe change its structure. And for us, it's fantastic because, as you have seen, all the interactions we did with asteroids were made by us so far, and the outcome was not the one we predicted. Here, we don't even have to touch. Nature offers the forces, and we just have to observe. And that's why, with the European Space Agency, we are now working on a mission called Ramses that want to go to see this object before, during, and after to see how it transforms. And for the public, what we will do is when you will see the light in the sky, on the same time you're on your screens, we will feed in live the real images of these asteroids. So that will be, I think, something that will be kept in the collective memory. And I'm always thinking of the young people that will make them wonder. So I end with the fact that everything is based on international cooperation, all these missions. And as I always say to everyone, and I know you know that too, there are 3 keys. First, accepting the long term. Nothing can be succeeded in a like on Instagram. Second, accept failure on the way. Nothing is always perfect, and that's fine. And third, enjoy what you do and work with people with whom you like to work so that you work even better. And I always have a positive attitude because I see really for the young, they are in a way that they block because they think it's over. No, it's never over. It's never over until it is, and until I'm proven it is, we fight. Thank you very much, and I'm here for you.
Thank you so much. And we always love speakers who we know we could listen to more. It's not good when they continue after we finished enjoying them. We could listen to Dr. Michel a lot more. If you look up in the air tonight and you see an asteroid, if it has a number on it and it's number 7561, then that asteroid is called Patrick Michel, just so you know. And this is a true fact. But what I learned a lot from this. What I learned much more than anything else is, isn't it wonderful when we enjoy what we do? And listen to somebody who is so engaged and so loves what he does, which we all do with the aviation industry. I hope we all do it. But that should teach us also a lesson besides all the factual lessons that we learned. So very many thanks to Dr. Michel, and he's here all day, and would love to speak to you all. We have a number of things. Please don't leave at the moment because it's very important you stay for 2 things. First of all, we have Chris Megan and Nick Callio, if I can ask you up to the stage. And Chris will say a few words to Nick, and we'll ask Sandrine also to join us on stage. So Nick and Chris, please join us on stage. And we have a surprise that you want to speak from here, okay? So we will let Chris, who is a partner with the Penta Group, speak to us about Nick.
Thank you very much, John.
That's a very tough act to follow, Patrick. You've really stolen the thunder, I think. Bonati Urva Carja is Misha Christora Mahagan, Confarti Ag Penta, August Kovle Airlines for America. Greetings, my friends. I'm Christopher Megan, a partner at Penta and a consultant for Airlines for America. Ladies and gentlemen, it's truly a pleasure to be here today to present the Global Leadership in Aviation Award to Nicholas E. Callio. I first met Nick a decade ago in his role as CEO and President of Airlines for America. We were in Strasbourg for meetings with the then European Commissioner for Transport. It's often said that first impressions count, and while I initially joked that I expected the CEO to be taller, it quickly became clear that Nick's leadership stood tall in every other way that mattered. As anyone here who knows him will attest, Nick has a remarkable gift for forging lasting relationships and bringing people together, which made working with him a pleasure. However, not everything was always smooth sailing. Over a number of years, there was a running joke during our meetings in the United Kingdom, because coincidentally, it seemed that whenever Nick met with an aviation minister, that minister would end up leaving their role not too long after. Losing one minister is unfortunate. 2 seems careless. 3, well, Nick, people start asking questions. Of course, we assured him it was purely coincidental and that he wasn't any sort of jinx. But the rumours persisted, and we sometimes joked that if only we'd introduced him to some politicians sooner, we might have all saved ourselves some trouble. Nick's leadership has left an indelible mark on our industry. Under his stewardship, Airlines for America became widely recognized as the gold standard for aviation industry representation. It was not uncommon for us to receive feedback from ministers and government advisors that Airlines for America distinguished themselves by always contributing to meetings in a meaningful way, finding constructive steps forward on the issues that matter the most. Nick's ability to maintain a strategic long-term vision while also zeroing in on the micro details of each meeting made him an invaluable leader. Over the years, my experience with Nick has been deeply rooted in representing the aviation industry's interests in increasingly complex policy and regulatory debates. My friends, I'd love to say that those challenges have diminished, but in reality, the issues have grown more numerous and the debates more polarized. In a world where debates can become deeply confrontational, Nick's leadership reminds us that making a genuine human connection and finding common ground is not only possible, but vitally important. It's truly an honor to celebrate his contributions today, and I wish to thank Sandrine and her colleagues at APG for inviting me to do so. I'd like to leave you all with an Irish saying that encapsulates my thoughts on Nick's leadership. In Irish, we say, Ní náirt an gan ein tocht. There is no strength without unity. It is a reminder that the kind of leadership that Nick has shown, bringing people together, finding common ground, and working toward a shared vision, is the true source of our collective strength. Thank you, Nick, for your leadership and your friendship. May we all carry forward your spirit of unity in our endeavours.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate the effort you made to get here, and I appreciate your friendship and all your wise counsel over the years. I'm honored to receive this award, particularly at this meeting, and particularly from APG. Over the years, I have found that this is the best meeting to come to connect with people, to get information, and frankly, to have some fun. So we'll see you all on the dance floor tonight. So Jean-Louis, Sandrine, thank you for this recognition. I am truly honored and humbled. I've had a long career. I've been lucky to have a long career in an industry that we all love for what it does to connect the world, what it does to drive economies, and for what it does with its challenges that keep us busy every day. And as Chris noted, they're not going to end. I like to say also that success has many authors, and I'd like to name just a few here today. First of all, my wife Lydia, who has been my partner. Collaborator and advisor for over 47 years. Patricia Vercelli, who is part of the best staff in Washington, D.C., and the best chief legal officer and most innovative that A4A has ever had. And she's also a very trusted advisor to me on a daily basis. And then to Chris. We have been working together for 10 years, all across Europe and elsewhere, and he does a great job. So again, Sandrine, thank you, and thank you to APG for this honor. I am truly humbled.
And Nick, think the city of Seville would also like to honor you. We'll just take a picture here. And then the city of Seville also wanted to honor you for your contribution. So we have an extra award handed over by the Deputy Mayor of Seville. If you have enough hands. Thank you very much, and congratulations, Nick, on a fantastic career. There's this one here. Before we go, I will run this very quickly because I think that I hear the champagne bottles, corks jumping out of the bottles. So we're ready for that. So let me just tell you what's happening from now on. First of all, and listen carefully, because I shall say this only once. Listen carefully. When you leave here now, please take everything that you want to take with you, because everything else will be removed because we will reorganize the room. So make sure that that happens. Then, if we can scroll through the slides so we can show people, thank you. There will be an aperitif, and it will be champagne. And it's hosted and sponsored by UATP. We then have lunch, which is offered by Seville, or Sevilla. At 3 o'clock, we gather again. So there's two things going on. There's the Business Connect session in here, where we have 3 interesting sessions by Blue Ribbon Banks, TRAVELSOFT, and after a coffee break, also by APG Cargo. You will not want to miss this, but if you want to miss any of it, then there is all our sponsors outside. They want to speak to you. They make sure that the champagne is paid for. So make sure that you speak to them and try and do some business with them. That's why they're here, besides wanting to have fun. So this all takes place at 3 o'clock, so please be back from lunch at 3 o'clock. We'll have the sessions outside. Then, after that finishes, you have time to make yourself even more beautiful than you are already. And then dress up, as always, the black tie. It's getting your best dress and black tie on, and be ready by 6:45, where we will have the concert, the piano concert by Alice Power, and that will take place, as I say, 6:45 until 7:30. From 7:20 for those, and by the way, please be on time for the piano concert because the doors close. So please be on time. For those who do not wish to do that or don't make it, from 7:20, the shuttle buses will start leaving. And they will go until 8 o'clock. If you want to go to dinner tonight, you have to be on a bus before 8 o'clock. If you take the early buses, you will be there for 8 o'clock, and there will be cocktails, drinks served from 8 to 8:45. Then we'll have the gala dinner. We'll have our music, we'll have our dancing, we'll have fun, we will enjoy life, we'll enjoy each other's company. And then from 10:30 until 1 o'clock, we get back on the transfers to the hotel. Have as much fun as you can, but tomorrow morning we meet again in here at 9 o'clock. If you sleep or not, I don't care. As long as you're here at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, that's all I care about, because we have another great program tomorrow morning. So with that said, I think you all know what's going to happen. I want to see you all here back at 3 for the afternoon sessions, and then we'll have fun later on in the evening. But for now, we go to our cocktails. I think there is the final slide to push. If there is, if there isn't, then please enjoy cocktails. Thanks so much for being a great audience this morning.